Unfashionably late, I think, is the more accurate term. Hey Helen, hey Pussycat, how are we? Happy Friday. Who's in a Friday mood? So I'm going through this case at supersonic speed, but I think that's fine, right? Helen is in a Friday mood. Good, good. I'm so disorganized. So disorganized. I thought I would play just the beginning of a clip I played way back and remind ourselves of the 911 call and the early reporting on this case. If there's more people turn up, before I go into the testimony from 2022 of Wendy and Jeffrey, if there's anyone that's got any questions on the case, then perhaps we can chill for 20 minutes, half an hour before that. Otherwise, I'll just jump into the testimony. But before I do that, let's just
exactly what
remind
happened.
ourselves.
Okay, tell me exactly what happened.
We heard a loud bang and a car pulled away from next.
Why is this not showing up? What am I doing wrong? Hey, Wiccan. How are you tonight? You've got a cool new logo, I see. Oh, I think this is fine. All right, so this is. What's going on? Why can't I see the video? Can you guys see the video that I'm playing here? Suzanne is here, who is just leaving Walmart.
Home.
Something is very wrong with StreamYard right now. Wait. Okay, I think I have it.
In a college.
Okay, confession time. I was at the bar earlier with mates, so my head might not be the sharpest right now. Okay, this is the 911 call and some early reporting on this case.
Okay, tell me exactly what happened.
We heard a loud bang and a car pulled away from next door. I came over and looked in. The garage door was up, and I thought the gentleman was backing out, and I went back to my house, but he never backed out, and I came back over, and his driver's side window is shattered, and he's battered and can't answer. He's inside. I don't know if somebody tried to shoot him or if he shot himself or what. I don't know. He didn't send an ambulance in a hurry. An EMT. He's still alive. He's moving.
We're investigating a grisly murder committed in broad daylight in a college community. Just as shocking as the location, the victim, a professor and family man. And now his friends and former students remember this beloved teacher. Police struggle to piece together a puzzling crime. Who killed him? And what was the motive?
This isn't the domain of gunshot victims, but college professors and family men, like Markel, who earlier that morning had dropped his two sons off at daycare and drove home. There in his garage, left for dead until that neighbor found him checking on the curiously open garage door. But Markel, a renowned law professor, wasn't robbed. Law enforcement source tells ABC News the assailant waited for him in the driveway, then followed Markel into his garage. A single bullet hitting Markel beneath the jawline, but it didn't kill him.
He's still moving around, so he's alive.
Markel would die 14 hours later at Tallahassee Memorial Hospital, just a few minutes' drive from the house. The sandy-haired scholar with an Ivy League pedigree leaving behind his sons. The big questions, just what happened to the conscientious professor and father of two, and who would want to kill him? And that first clue, another neighbor telling police about a silver Prius speeding away. Multiple sources tell ABC News Markel was on the phone when he arrived home, remarking to the person on the phone that there was someone in his driveway. He did not sound threatened. Then minutes later, that silver Prius seen speeding from the scene. A vehicle of interest, but what about a person? Markel had been married to another eminent lawyer, Wendy Adelson. Together they had those two boys, but their love soured, turning into an ugly divorce with squabbles over child custody. Friends telling us Markel described the day she left him as his Pearl Harbor.
Okay. Now, we have watched this already. Let me just bring up you see the timeline there as well as the map. So before I go through into the testimony, I want to just remind you of the testimony of one of the law enforcement officers that was at the actual roadblock, which was just a few houses down from Trescott Drive. For those that have seen the testimony in the first trial, 2019, you would have heard Wendi lie essentially about how close to the roadblock that she got. She tried to suggest that she just turned on to Trescott Drive, seen that it was blocked, and then assumed that it was a tree had fell, and then doubled back onto Centerville on her way to ABC Liquors there. But we now know that she did drive all the way up to the roadblock. So that's alarming that she would lie about that. It's also alarming that she didn't check on her kids, right? So let's hear the testimony of the law enforcement officer. And we'll see little clips from the various testimony coming up.
Oh. Did you go to the crime scene or very near the crime scene on your way from your residence to, I guess, to lunch or to wherever you were going next?
No, I did not.
So you never turned on Trescott Drive that day?
I went to turn on Trescott Drive, but I saw that it had been blocked off by some
Yeah, so this is what we've heard from the very first trial in 2019. This was her first narrative.
tape, and so I just kept driving on Centerville.
Okay, and when you had to turn around at the tape, right, to go back out?
I think I tried to turn right, and it couldn't turn, so I would have made like the kind of turn, like a K-turn, and kept going.
Was there a roadblock there with?
There was tape.
Yeah, and an officer was there?
I didn't see an
Okay, correction, Rabid. I don't think this is the very first trial. I think this is one of the follow-up trials. Her narrative's a little different.
officer, but I did see a car.
A law enforcement marked vehicle? Okay, did you have any contact with the officer?
No.
Okay. Did you do anything after that to try to find out what was going on down that roadway?
No, I just assumed it was weather, or maybe a tree fell.
Did you attempt to call Dan Markel when you encountered the roadblock?
No, I didn't think anything of it.
Basically, the investigators and the crime scene techs taking their portion. And the crime scene tech vehicles are marked police and have lights on them and stuff.
From the roadblock where you were positioned, could you see the crime scene?
Yes.
Would it have been obvious to someone approaching your position in a vehicle that there was activity, law enforcement activity going on at that residence?
It seems likely.
Did you know at the time that Wendy Adelson drove this type of vehicle?
Yes.
All right, so you noticed this vehicle or a vehicle identical to this one approach your position?
Yes, ma'am.
And what did the vehicle do when it approached your position?
Just stopped pretty quick and turned around and headed back in the other direction.
What did Wendy Adelson see when she almost drove by a crime scene on July 18th of 2014? We're on Trescott Drive, where Dan Markell lived. And on the day that he was murdered, his ex-wife testified that she took this very street on her way to a liquor store before she was notified he'd been killed. Prosecutors allege that if she had no involvement, then the police cars and roadblock and crime scene tape on this street should have raised her alarm.
When you drove to ABC Liquor, you tried to go through Trescott. Is that fair to say?
It was blocked.
There are other ways to go to ABC Liquor, right? You could have gone down other roads.
I don't have the best sense of direction, so when I find a route, I just kind of keep using that route.
We retraced Wendy's route that day. She would have been coming from Centerville Road, a more commercial street, and she left Centerville to pass through Benton Hills on Trescott Drive, a much more residential road with several caution signs. Then it takes us another 2.5 minutes after leaving Centerville Road to get close to Markell's home on Trescott. Wendy testified to something different. She said she barely made it onto Trescott before she saw police. This is around where that police roadblock would have been, according to the officer on the scene's testimony. Wendy claimed she couldn't see what was happening at Markell's house from her car. It's the one you see there with the brick mailbox. It's about 2 houses from that speed hump sign. And the road winds out to where it's more visible to see that mailbox, but you can't make out exactly because of the trees, the actual house building. If the roadblock was set up where Officer Bill Brandon recalled, between 3 and 6 houses away from the scene, it appears emergency vehicles parked along this narrow road would have been visible and obvious to drivers, but the car where Markell was ambushed, it would have been out of sight. After Wendy Adelson was turned around at this location, she completed her stop at the store and then went to lunch with friends. It's there that an investigator interrupted that lunch to let her know the tragic news of her ex-husband's shooting.
All right, so there you heard from the officer himself, Bill Brannan, who knew Wendy, knew the car that Wendy drove, saw her drive up to the tape, like he said, 2 or 3 homes up from the crime scene where she lived less than a year previous, and immediately do a U-turn, turn back. She thought nothing of it though, right? Thought nothing of it. Why would you? She does look like she has major stuff done to her face. Let's just be honest about it. Those lips, my God. You could stick her to a window. Hey Pat, how are you? Bullshit is right. Glad you're here, Sarah. Yeah, you missed the live yesterday. I really recommend watching that one, Sarah, because I didn't quite appreciate just how crucial the interview of Tamaro Demko, Dan's good friend. She was also friends with Wendy. Just how crucial and revealing her interview is. She literally corroborates so much of what we already suspect and corroborates so much of what Jeffrey Lacasse said. So I'd really recommend watching that back. Hey, Black Eagle. Yeah, her story is literally unbelievable. Suzanne says, if your children are close to a bad crime scene, a shooting, I'm sorry, I jump every barrier to get there. And not only that, not only did she not jump the barrier or make any phone calls, when the cops turned up at Mosaic Restaurant later in the afternoon, she got in that vehicle and rode to the police station without demanding answers after what she had just seen. Yeah, suction, Helen, suction. Oh, did you, Sarah? What did you make of what Tamara had to say? Interesting, right? Hey, K Buns, good to see you again. Cool. So who would like to have a look at Google Earth here just to so I can show you a few things here, just to emphasize a few things that we already know.
There was tape.
I'm really not with it tonight. Right, okay, here we go. Let's bring up Google Earth. I need a producer. I need something here. I need help. Why can I not show this display? Okay, there we go. Here is the crime scene. This, I don't have this marked very well, but this is exactly where the roadblock was, guys, okay? Let's see if we can have a look. Okay, how long was I off screen, guys? Can you guys hear me now? How long could you not hear me for? You hear me now? 2 minutes? Okay. Let's try again. So this is the roadblock, and she would have come around that corner there. So she would have driven up somewhere, you know, from that corner over to here. And if we keep going up, that's Dan's place there. So you can see how the proximity. And now Google Earth crashes on me. And this is where Wendy lived, okay? And this is where Wendy was going to. She was going here to Mosaic. She got there just after 1 o'clock. And this is the way she drove. And I was, you know, thinking to myself, well, clearly this route makes no sense if you're going to Mosaic, okay? And then I was thinking, well, this road that she comes down here, down Centerville, you can't turn onto this highway here. It's a bridge. So I was thinking, well, does she just like to drive this way? And it's just, you know, it's just what she does. But then obviously there's other ways she could have went. So if she had turned left instead of right, she could have got to Mosaic in a quarter of the time. And I'll just so for instance, if I just show you here, Aqua Ridge, Tallahassee to Mosaic Restaurant, Tallahassee. Hopefully this works. That's the quickest route in blue there, if you guys can see that. Helen's saying it's just a case of turning right. Well, you can't turn right. If you're talking about where that yellow highway is, you can't turn onto that highway. It's a bridge that goes over there. But you can see if she comes out of her estate here, you just turn left and you can come this way straight to Mosaic. And in pink here, you see all the other liquor stores, which are more conveniently located than round the corner from Dan's. It's ABC Liquors that she went to at 12:49, just round the corner. The other right. Which other right? Right, left, up, down. We can all see the point here, right? Does not take Sherlock Holmes to work this one out. Earthquake? There was an earthquake? You just had a shaker. It's the anniversary of the 1971 earthquake in LA. Wow. That must be crazy to over here in the UK, we just never think about earthquakes, obviously. It's a crazy thought that that is a realistic possibility, right? How bad was the shaker, Sarah? Oh my God. Obviously, it was serious enough.
Calls Wendy.
Yeah, turn on the news for sure. Okay, let's just watch Wendy here enter the stage for her performance. And I'll pause for 5-10 minutes to see if any of you guys have any questions in regards to anything we've covered so far, anything about the case, and then we'll jump into this. 4.7 magnitude. I don't know a lot about the Richter scale, but I imagine that's not nothing, right? Centered in Malibu. Okay, here comes Wendy.
Your Honor, the state calls Wendy Adelson.
All right, Wendy Adelson, please.
Just behind Wendy there in the light blue dress is Sarah Duggan, who is the co-prosecutor. She's fantastic as well. They're a great team, Georgia and Sarah.
Okay, Ms. Adelson, if you come up to the witness stand, please. Before you have a seat, we're going to swear you in. Please raise your right hand and respond to the clerk.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Please have a seat. Ms. Kappelman.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Even if I didn't hate Wendy, I think I'd be noticing how weird her plastic face is. It just is, right? I don't think that can be denied. See, we're all worried about Sarah with the blue dress. This is the largest we've had here locally in some time. Oh my God. That's perfect, Helen. She's like a doll robot. She's a cyborg. She is not a human being. If you cut her, she shall not bleed. Yeah, Callie. She is like a Stepford wife. Okay, so I'm not getting inundated with questions, so let's just begin this. And I'm interested to remind myself of the contrast from her first testimony, and then it's going to be interesting watching Jeff afterwards. So there's a lot to go through here, so let's jump into it.
Please introduce yourself and spell your name.
My name is Wendy Adelson, Wendiadelson.
Ms. Adelson, where do you currently live?
I currently live in Miami Beach.
And
I think that's probably where the truth ends here.
And are you here today pursuant to a state subpoena?
Yes, I am.
And do all state subpoenas confer immunity?
I don't know if all state subpoenas confer immunity, but this one does.
Okay, and
she was forced to testify. She had to be subpoenaed, obviously, and she was given this version of immunity that Georgia's going to explain, I think.
Do you believe that your subpoena is special or different from other state subpoenas?
I don't believe it's special or different, so I suppose they all carry immunity.
All right, and does the immunity conferred upon you by the subpoena mean that you can never be prosecuted associated with this case?
That's right.
That's what you think it means?
That's what I think it means.
Okay. And do you think, isn't it true that it's use and derivative use immunity? Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay, but not complete immunity from prosecution. Do you agree with that?
That's different than what you just asked before. So I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
All right, so what I'm trying to allow the jury to understand is what sort of immunity you have. What is your understanding of what it means for you to have immunity pursuant to the state subpoena?
So I have derivative and use immunity, and so in the future, a prosecutor couldn't use what I say here today against me.
Correct. But you could be prosecuted. Just nothing you said here today could be used against you in that prosecution. Do you agree with that?
I suppose so.
Okay.
I suppose so. In some fantasy world, everyone, where I am actually guilty here, in some fantasy world, I suppose I could be prosecuted.
Have you made any sort of special deal with the state attorney's office or with any law enforcement or government agent?
No.
All right. Was there a time that you lived in Tallahassee?
Yes, I used to live in Tallahassee.
What was the time frame that you lived here?
I was here for about 8 years. I lived here
So just a reminder, this is the retrial of this clown, Katie McBanowa, who, let's be realistic, this murder would not have happened, at least not in the way it did, without this idiot. And she was convicted at the end of this trial.
last year of law school, so the academic year 05-06. We were in Miami for 06-07, And then I would have been back 2007 to 2014.
All right. And what brought you back to Tallahassee after you returned to Miami after law school?
Well, I went to Tallahassee to finish law school, and then we went to Miami because Danny had a job opportunity at University of Miami.
Okay.
It didn't come to fruition. He was not hired, and so we came back to Florida State.
And so your husband had a job opportunity here at Florida State?
Yes.
Okay, and that's what brought you to Tallahassee?
That's what brought us here.
And you also had a job opportunity at Florida State, is that right?
That's right.
What was that job?
I worked at the FSU Center for Human Rights, and at first I was a staff attorney. I used to represent victims of violent crime, asylum seekers, and victims of human trafficking. And then I taught various classes at FSU Law School. And then I ran something called a medical legal partnership.
And how long did you do that?
I was working at FSU for 7 years.
It is, Helen.
All right, so basically the whole time you were here in Tallahassee.
When I wasn't a student, I was working for FSU.
All right.
Yeah, the irony, human rights. Everything about Wendy is about presentation and giving an impression. I looked at her CV yesterday. It's hilarious. You know, you'd think she was second in line to the presidency with how much she seems to think she's achieved.
When did you meet Dan Markel?
Danny and I we met first online, and we met when I was starting my 2L year of law school. So that would have been 2004?
Never date online, guys. You'd never catch me doing that sort of thing. Fraught with problems.
Fall of 2004.
And when were the two of you married?
We were married in February 2006.
Do you have any children in common?
We have 2 children.
All right, both boys?
Both boys.
All right, during the time that you moved to Tallahassee, the second time to work here at Florida State, were you living with Dr. Markel the entire time as a married couple?
I'm sorry, Dr. Markel?
I'm sorry, Mr. Markel, Dan Markel, your husband.
Were we living as a married couple when we returned to Tallahassee?
Yes.
Yes. So by that point, we returned in August maybe of 06. So we got married in February of 06. So we've been married 6 months by then.
And the entire time that you were living as a married couple, was that at the trust?
She just pounced on the misuse of doctor there for Dan, didn't she? She was very on the ball to correct that. I like making you spit out your wine, Helen.
Scott address that we've seen photos of earlier?
No, we lived first in a rented house. I actually don't remember what neighborhood it was now. It's been a while. But we lived there until we bought our house. So maybe...
I have to try and stop myself at times when I'm watching this bitch. She literally represents, she embodies everything I think I hate in humanity. Oh, she's so gross.
6 months in the other location. I don't remember exactly how long.
All right. Do you remember what year you moved into the Trescott address?
We moved into the Trescott address. Maybe, I don't remember exactly what year. Probably, it would have been 2008 or 2009. It was before my older son was born.
All right. And you were living there in he was living there in 2014 when this murder occurred, correct?
He was living there in 2014.
And you were no longer living there?
I stopped living there in 2012.
I stopped living there in 2012. Everything she says, all her phrases are weird. I stopped living there. You left him and you took the kids. You did not tell him where you went to with the kids. Just try and get a little closer to the actual reality, Wendy.
In 2012, was there a separation first before a divorce, or?
Yes, there was a separation.
When was the separation effective?
September 2012.
And whose decision was it to separate?
It was my decision.
And was part of the reason for the separation differing views on how your children should be raised within the Jewish faith?
I mean, that's certainly part of it, but not really a central decision. It was more just our relationship.
So this is one thing I didn't quite appreciate at the beginning of covering this, is how much of an issue this really was. The fact that Dan was a very devout Jew, and it was very important to him to raise the kids in the same manner. I was going through some of the emails from from Donna to Wendy earlier on, and Donna is trying to use this fact to provoke Dan by suggesting that they convert the kids to Christianity and use this as leverage to try and get him to agree to come down to Miami because they can go to a Jewish school down there. And this was all part of the plan from Donna to try and bribe Dan to the tune of $1 million to get him to accept this. And I was thinking, although I knew the differences between Wendy and Dan regarding religion were there, I assumed that it was more just down to Donna's devious plan. But it turns out from listening to, especially to Tamara's interview yesterday and some of Jeff's, that it actually was a serious issue between Wendy and Dan themselves. She was very against raising the kids this way. From what Tamara said, she was all in to begin with when they first got together and got married, but then it became a bigger issue, right? So it's just worth saying that. Helen says, it's the nodding head, a doll robot malfunction. Yeah, you know it. Callie says, the fact that the Adelsons purposely made the wedding dinner food non-kosher shows exactly who they are. Yeah, I did not know that, Callie. Wow. 3 cents. Does anyone know if human rights exclude murder? Yeah. Yeah. I think they do, right? And I was saying this yesterday. In the event Wendy gets away with this and is never on the defendant's bench, which I think is unlikely still. I think she is going to get arrested. But if that were to happen, she's forever blackened by this to everyone she ever meets in life. In the media forever, right? She is known. She has been known, and she will continue to be known as the person that almost definitely killed her husband, her ex-husband. And there's some consolation in that. The big question is, does she actually give a shit what people think? I think she probably does. Not as much as you or I would. Helen thinks that she really could get away with it, unfortunately and wrongly. I'm kinda 50-50 or 60-40. I lean towards her getting arrested, I really do. I mean, it's such a big deal that she was named by the prosecution as an unindicted conspirator. We have to assume they have more. Sarah says, has it ever crossed your mind she might want to get caught? Wow, interesting question. I wouldn't have thought so, Sarah. What makes you think? What makes you ponder that? Jamie is here. Jamie is the fountain of information on this case. Sarah says, just that she leaked so much. Okay, I get you. So you're referring to her telling Jeff that Charlie hired a hitman or tried to hire a hitman, and then telling Jeff about the joke, the TV hitman joke, telling the Best Buy repairman about the joke, telling the interviewer about the joke, right? It's so hard to find the logic in that. But I don't think she was wanting to get caught. I think this was some strange acrobatic attempt to place herself as the victim in the eyes of people around her. Jamie says she doesn't have any shame. Hopefully Georgia will send her to the Grey Bar Hotel. Yes, so many times she's pointing to her family. Yeah, and she is now essentially ghosting her family, from what I hear. And like I said yesterday, the narrative has been that Wendy was the weakest link. It's a hard pun not to use, right, after her being on the show. But the narrative has been that she is the weakest link in the family, and Charlie is the older brother protecting her. And she has the all-devouring mother who will not stop interfering in her life. But could it be, in truth, that Wendy is the strongest link and her family are the weak ones? Because people have pointed out they have to have been wiretapping her, right? Along with Donna and Charlie. They have to have been. And we've heard nothing about this, so they didn't get anything. And you just know that Wendy is so careful about shit like that. She even changed her phone shortly after the interview with law enforcement because she was convinced that the cops would be trying to wiretap her phone. Yeah, Sarah, seeing it from all angles. Right, Sarah, but being objective and consider things that are least likely. I mean, it's still, there is still a chance that this horrid family did this without Wendy say so, right? We have to consider that that is still possible. It just seems so unlikely. Just in general, it seems unlikely, but even with the information that we already have on top of that.
Relationship overall, I mean, Danny certainly wasn't, we were on different pages when it came to religion, but I wouldn't say that was...
And that's what I'm specifically inquiring about, was that part of it? So I think your answer is yes, that was part of it.
Sure.
Okay, you are both Jewish, correct?
Yes.
All right, and both of you did agree to raise the children within the Jewish faith? Is that
we did,
correct?
and we have.
Okay, so what were the differences between the two of you on that front?
From what I gather, the Adelsons are atheistic Jews, secular.
Probably in the observance of keeping kosher. So I don't keep kosher, and Danny did, and that became difficult to do in Tallahassee and difficult to do with differing beliefs around that.
Can you explain for the jurors what keeping kosher means?
Sure. It's a separation of milk from meat. So you couldn't have a cheeseburger, for example, right? You couldn't have milk with a meat product, and the meat has to be killed in a ritual specific way that's been blessed by a rabbi. And you're not supposed to eat shellfish of any kind, so no seafood. There's a lot more rules, but those are just some high level ones.
All right, and was it very important?
Helen, you're good at body language. Let us know if you notice anything.
To your husband that the children be raised on a kosher diet?
It was, yes.
All right, and that was something that was not important to you?
It's not a question of it not being important to me. It just started to supersede other things that are important, like love and trust.
Okay, did that diet seem impractical to you?
At times it was complicated. I mean, there was one particular time I had taken the boys to a picnic for one of my clients for one of her children, and my older son had pizza, and Danny was very, very upset about this. He was maybe 1 at the time, but it was pizza that wasn't kosher, and so that became challenging.
All right, so this was something that sort of came up as an issue during the course of the marriage.
It did.
All right, and other things as well. I don't mean to suggest that it was based solely on the children's diets, but
just notice the intensity The intensity of her stare at Georgia. She is hyper focused. You can almost see her brain working at 1,000 miles an hour. The cogs are turning quickly.
Something.
Using the metaphor of an iceberg, it wasn't the tip that sunk the Titanic. It was the iceberg under the water, the unconscious. I like that. Yeah, she's being honest at the moment, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the first 5-10 minutes of this are going to be what contains the crumbs of truth, I guess, right? And just, like, notice how different she appears and how different she sounds when she's referring to an actual truth to later on when she's being deflective and less factual, shall we say, right? There's a clear distinction in her.
That is going to come up later, and I wanted to make sure the jurors understood what was meant by kosher diet. All right. Did you move out of the marital home when you separated?
I did.
And where did you go to live when you left the marital home?
I rented a house, and I went to that house.
All right. Was that at the Aqua Ridge residence?
Yes, it was.
Does 3303 Aqua Ridge sound right?
That sounds right.
Okay. And that location is here in Leon County, right?
It is.
Okay. As well as the Trescott residence.
They're both in Leon County.
About how far apart are those two residences?
I think it used to take about 15, 20 minutes to drive, depending on traffic.
How long after you moved out of the home did you file for divorce?
I actually don't remember the answer to that. I'm assuming I would have filed for divorce right away.
Within a month sound about right?
That sounds about right.
Okay. I'm going to show you Exhibit 59 and ask.
Yeah, we all know it was carefully planned out. She'd been planning this out for at least a year.
You to take a look at the exhibit. I do not expect you to look at every page of this exhibit. But I think you've had an opportunity to look at this exhibit previously a little bit, right?
I don't have any memory of that.
Okay. So this is the first time you've ever seen this exhibit?
Wow, that was a big binder, guys. Wouldn't you love to have a look at that?
It's the first time I remember. It's
right,
very big.
Take a look and kind of just thumb through it. I again don't expect you to familiarize yourself with every page.
Yeah, and
And my question is, Adelson,
one of you guys, it was either Jamie or Suzanne, mentioned, why does she not comb her hair? Her hair needs sorted. It looks pretty bedraggled. Jamie's dog is barking. Yeah, your dog does not like Wendy. Her hair is a mess, right? Sort it out. I mean, she's obviously made an effort. You know, she wore the same suit to all 3 trials. Get it together.
you can look through it as much as needed to answer this question.
She had a question. What was your question?
It looks like it's about 800 pages long, so you want me to look
I want
through
you
it?
to look through it as much as is needed to answer the following question.
Oh, Wendy's trying to be sarky. Trying to be sarky to Georgia there.
Does it appear to be a fair and accurate copy of your divorce file?
I mean, from the front page, sure.
Okay. Do you have, thumb through it a little bit and just see if there's any reason to dispute that that's your complete divorce file from the clerk's office. It's certified if you want to take a look at the certification.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, so I want you to take a look, if you would, at the petition.
This actually does remind me a little bit of Jodi Arias's performance on the stand with Juan Martinez. Jody had the same kind of attempt to cross swords with Juan Martinez. It went a lot further than Wendy does here, but you can sense some of the same dynamic going on. Wendy is trying to take on Georgia.
That is on State's Exhibit 59, pages 1 through 5.
The one right on top?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
All the pages should be numbered through, so I'm referring to 1 through 5 on the bottom right corner there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that was your petition for divorce, correct?
Yes.
And so this was, would you agree that this was a contentious divorce?
I think it was made much more difficult by Danny, who didn't want to get divorced, but sure, we can call it contentious.
Not what we would classify as an amicable divorce. You hear about those.
No, it would be not an amicable divorce.
All right. And part of what you were seeking in your divorce in these documents in front of you was permission from the court to move with your children to South Florida. Is that correct?
Wendy looks
that was
computer
part
right.
of the overall divorce proceedings.
All right. And specifically on pages 43
Bed hair, yeah, I think she slept in a bush.
through 50, there's a petition to include a request to be allowed to relocate with minor children. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. And why were you seeking to move to South Florida?
I was seeking a place that would be stable and permanent for the kids and me. Danny never planned on staying in Tallahassee. It was just a question of time before he moved to New York to be with his girlfriend or had dreams of being at Harvard. So Tallahassee was just a temporary stopping point. I wanted a place that was permanent for us, where we had family support.
And why did South Florida?
And as you would have heard from yesterday from Tamara's testimony during her interview, Dan was very happy and settled in Tallahassee, was really keen to have himself established and make a life for himself there. So, yeah.
Florida seemed like a place of permanence to you.
Right. I mean, because we had family support, because I work in immigration, there were a lot of career opportunities for me there.
Are you from South Florida?
I am.
Okay. And when you say family support, what family resided there?
My mother, father, and brother.
Was the relocation to South Florida the most important part of your divorce?
No.
Was it your most non-negotiable term?
No.
Okay. But it was very important to you?
I wouldn't say it was very important to me.
Was it very important?
Even Wendy would probably laugh watching this back. Even she knows that that's just a bold-faced lie, surely.
Important to your mother?
She was much more looking forward to having her daughter and her grandchildren home. Yeah.
All right.
She sure was looking forward to it. She was so excited about the prospect that she killed your ex-husband to help with that. That's what she did.
If you would take a look for me at page 46, paragraph E. Just read that to yourself and let me know when you've had an opportunity to read that.
Austin Powers, yeah.
I read the first paragraph by E. Do you want me to read the second one?
Yes, please.
Okay.
And in those paragraphs, Ms. Adelson, are you alleging that Mr. Markell has created a hostile work environment for you at the Florida State University College of Law?
He did during a period of time.
All right, and was disparaging you to your colleagues? And if you'll take a look at pages beginning on 79, the document beginning on 79. And the question is this Mr. Markel's 23-page response to your motion to relocate?
You're asking me, is this
his response to your motion to relocate?
Yes, it looks like it.
All right, and it's quite verbose. Would you agree with that?
I imagine it is. At some point, Danny fired or alienated all of his attorneys and started doing his own legal work. So
fair to say he was adamantly opposed to you taking his kids to South Florida.
Yes, he shared all of that here, which is different than the conversations we had. But
that's what he filed.
What he filed is what the judge sanctioned him for.
All
yes.
Right. And in that filing, I'm specifically referencing to page 82, where Markel states that the sole stated reason the wife seeks to relocate with the party's minor children is so she can be closer to her parents. My understanding is you don't agree that's why you wanted to move.
It wasn't the sole reason why I wanted to move.
Okay. But you do agree it was a reason.
It was absolutely a reason. I wanted to create some stability for my kids, and having family around helps have a more stable environment.
Is it fair to say that your mother, Donna Adelson, was following these divorce proceedings pretty closely?
She was definitely being a little bit over-involved, yeah.
She was pretty invested in your personal life. Is that fair to say?
She is one of those moms, yes.
All right, and we've talked about your mom, Donna Adelson. Who's your father?
What is my father's name?
Mm-hmm.
Harvey Adelson.
And where do Donna and Harvey live currently?
They live in Miami.
All right. And are you still very close with your parents?
I am.
All right. And do you still live in close proximity to your parents?
I live about a 15-minute drive away.
And where did they live at the time that Dan Markel was killed?
They lived in Coral Springs, Florida.
And were you close with your mom back around the time that you were living in Tallahassee?
I was.
And did she have a close relationship with your children as well?
She did.
Are your parents employed?
Right now, they are both retired.
What about back in 2014?
In 2014, they were both employed.
How were they employed then?
Then my father had a dental practice, and my mom was managing his practice.
What's the name of the dental practice?
Dr. Harvey Adelson, DDS.
All right. Does Adelson Institute ring a bell as well?
Yes.
Okay. And do you know whether the practice there was successful, meaning lucrative?
At one point it was, and
what about
not anymore.
What about between 2013 and 2016? Was it lucrative at that time?
Between 2013 and 2016, it was definitely, the business was doing better than it did after that point when the social media barrage happened.
Referring to this case?
Barrage.
Absolutely.
Okay. But previous to the murder, the Adelson Institute was earning approximately $2 million in profit each year.
I have no idea what it was earning. I haven't the slightest idea, but
do you know whether your parents had...
Yeah, becoming suspects in the murder of your former son-in-law is not good for business, is it? What a shame. What a shame for the Adelson Institute.
Other investments other than their work at the Adelson Institute?
I don't know.
You don't know if they own any properties?
I know now that they own properties, but I didn't then.
Okay, and do you know now that they owned properties then?
I actually don't know when they acquired the properties, so I don't know.
All right, was your divorce impacting your family financially? So this is prior to the murder and the social
It was certainly
media.
impacting me financially, but I don't think it was impacting the rest of my family.
All right, how many lawyers did you have in your divorce?
I had one, and
So it's reckoned the legal costs for Wendy have to have surpassed 100,000, and it is obvious that it's almost certain that Wendy's parents were helping her with those costs, and they were willing to put forward 330,000 to contribute to the bribe to get Dan down to Tallahassee.
then Danny accused her of
Hey, hybrid.
ethical violations and stealing money, and so I had to hire a new attorney. I think he had 3 or 4.
No, I was talking about you. So you had 2.
I had 1, and then I had to get another, yes.
All right, and who paid for those 2 attorneys?
I did.
Okay. Did your mom retire from the dental practice during the time of your divorce to facilitate her spending more time with the children?
And you're very
No,
welcome.
she didn't retire from the dental practice. She did help me during the divorce and help me with the kids. They were very small, but she didn't retire. She just worked for my dad, so it was okay if she took a leave of absence here and there.
All right. Did you just...
Helen says she is eye blocking. Deception. I like it. When you say eye blocking, do you mean maintaining eye contact? Is that what you mean by eye blocking? Or do you mean something other than that? I'm not sure.
discuss your marital problems and the resulting legal issues with your mother?
I'm sure I did.
Yeah, like Jamie says, Wendy was essentially an adjunct professor. She didn't earn enough to be covering all these costs.
Is it fair to say your mother is a controlling person?
I think my mom is and was very...
She's an all-devouring, maniacal, murdering beast is what she is.
invested in my life. I don't think of her as a controlling person.
Is it fair to say around the time of your divorce that your mom did not like Dan Markell?
I think that's fair to say. I think she was very disappointed by the way he treated me.
In fact, she despised him, didn't she?
I can't speak to how my mom felt or whether she despised him. I think she was very disappointed.
She sent you some emails to indicate her feelings about Dan Markell around that time, didn't she?
She did.
I'm going to show you what I've marked as State's Exhibit 63. We'll come back to this, but we can kind of move it to the side. All right. This one.
Ms. Kappelman, do you want me to read it?
No, ma'am. Just take a look at those and tell me if you can authenticate them as emails that were sent to you from your mother.
I can authenticate them.
All right. So the donnaharvey@gmail.com is your parents' shared email address. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. But these emails were coming from your mother based on the context. Is that right? Not your dad.
Yeah. That's what I thought you meant, Helen. Holding her blank for a longer than normal period of time. It's a way of trying not to see what the mind's eye truth is seeing. So she has this habit of, she has this intense stare of maintaining eye contact for a long time, but then when she does blink, it's for longer than normal, right? Interesting.
Imagine they probably represented both of their feelings.
Helen Happy Thoughts is a connoisseur of the behavior panel, which is a great channel.
They've been married 51 years, so sometimes my mom speaks for my dad.
Okay. All right, so there's one, I believe it's on top there, dated May 3rd, 2013. Was that about 3 months before your divorce was finalized?
My memory is that our divorce was finalized in June 2013. So wouldn't that just be 1 month before?
I had July 31st, so.
Okay.
Whatever is your memories.
So, okay, this was May and our
Yeah, the divorce was finalized July 31st.
divorce was finalized in July then.
Okay. I just want to talk a little bit about the emails that are in front of you there. So on that first email dated May 3rd, 2013, page 1 of 5, and the second real paragraph, does your mother indicate that the most important
Objection.
part of your divorce is
Objection.
relocation?
Hold on a second, Ms. Kappelman.
I don't believe this item is in evidence, Your Honor.
The items have not been admitted into evidence at this point, Ms. Kappelman.
Correct.
All right, so I don't want you reading from them if they haven't been admitted into evidence.
All right. Ms. Adelson, did your mother indicate to you that to her the most important part of your divorce is relocation?
Your Honor, objection.
That's sustained.
Okay, Judge, at this time, I would ask to approach.
Sidebar of the witness.
Sidebar.
Oh, I'm sorry. Your Honor.
Don't know why she didn't already have that in evidence, that exhibit. She is accessing her truthful memories to her right. Any deviation of that is questionable deception. Yeah, apologies, I didn't go through and cut out the sidebars here.
All right, Ms. Adelson, what was the most important part of your divorce to your mother?
You're asking in reference to the email or not in reference to the email?
Not in reference to the email.
So just in general, what for
Yes.
her, it was probably for me to be safe.
That's such a dumb response. What does it matter about the email? What was the most important thing to Donna about the divorce? Stands alone as a question, Wendy, regardless of the goddamn email. I mean, the suggestions of disingenuousness from Wendy are so palpable. She cannot answer difficult questions for a good reason.
And be in a stable situation with the boys.
Okay, would it refresh your recollection to take a look at the emails in front of you, State's Exhibit, which are marked as State's Exhibit 63?
If I look at it, she's saying
Hold on
here.
a second. Just review
Just,
it, okay?
If you'd read to yourself about the first half of that second real paragraph.
Just review it to yourself, and then Ms. Kappelman will ask you another question.
Okay.
All right, does that refresh your recollection about what your mother felt was the most important non-negotiable term of your divorce?
It does.
Okay, and what was that?
That was relocation.
And did your mother, I think you said she was very unhappy with him. Did you agree that she despised him?
I can't speak to whether my mom despised him or didn't. She was very, very disappointed with the way he treated me.
Okay, and did she ever call him names?
I don't remember her calling him names.
Would it refresh your recollection to take a look at the emails for that?
I'm happy to.
Okay, if you'll take a look at page 1, about halfway down, just read those few sentences there, and then I will draw your attention to page 2 when you're ready. Actually, you know what? For refreshing purposes, I'm going to approach with my copy. And I'm just going to kind of draw your attention to the items highlighted in green. If you'll just look at those to yourself and then flip through and look for those.
It's interesting, isn't it? Just observing what a liar and a deceiver looks like. It's always been one of the interesting things about true crime in terms of interrogations and trials is that you're in a unique situation where you have the information to know most times when someone is most likely lying. You have certain facts in true crime, don't you, usually? You certainly have a damn good reason to believe when someone is lying. So you normally don't get that situation in life where you have certainty in those regards. So it's interesting to observe. Because I'm sure there's patterns with all liars and deceivers.
Items highlighted in green.
Okay. Do you want me to flip through the whole thing?
No, go through and just to yourself look at the items in green.
It's a lot to expect with no PSA and proper refreshment. I know. I don't want to act like we're not true. We're not true. Yeah, record burns.
Okay.
Did your mom ever refer to your husband as an asshole?
Yes.
A bully?
Yes.
A zealot?
A religious zealot, yes.
A jackass?
Yes.
A religious extremist?
Yes.
What about Jibbers? She calls him Jibbers?
Yeah, Jibbers is not a bad name. It was a silly name that I came up with during a period of time when
She can't even admit the name Jibbers was intended to have a negative, demeaning connotation. So goddamn obvious that a 10-year-old could understand it. She even has to try and deflect on that question. It was just a playful, cute name, Wendy, right?
I felt incredibly terrorized by Danny. And so it was a word that I would use to kind of make him seem less scary.
Is it fair to say that it was a derogatory term?
No.
Okay, but you came up with it directly in relation to him terrorizing you?
I did. It was a way to take the steam out of a situation I found scary. I wouldn't say it was derogatory. I just think it was.
And when you say scary, are you alleging physical abuse?
I'm not alleging physical abuse.
All right. What types of things did your mother suggest that you could do to try to coerce or acquire the ability to relocate your kids to Miami?
She suggested that I could change the religion.
Of who?
Of my children.
And why would that affect the relocation effort?
Because religion was so important to Danny that would be a real hot button thing.
Okay. And did she ever suggest that you could bribe your husband to allow the relocation?
She did.
And how much money did she suggest that she and the family would be willing to put up for such a bribe?
So I just saw the bribe reference, but I didn't see the amount. If you want to show me.
I will refresh you on that.
$1 million. Good work, Helen. Her baseline blink rate is quite random, but here she's showing stress, possible deception as it's increased massively.
Just a moment to find it myself.
Overruled.
I'm going to page 15 of the document.
Ensure it returns, Helen.
Look at the highlighted portion, let me know if that refreshes your recollection.
Okay.
How much money was your family willing to put up to bribe Dan Markel to let you move to Miami with your kids?
They said that they would go as high as $1 million, which would be $333,000 each.
And who are the each?
My mom, my dad, and Charlie.
Did Charlie, you mentioned he also lived in South Florida. Was he employed at the family dental practice?
He worked there sometimes.
And what type of work did he do?
He is a periodontist, so he would sometimes do implants or surgery for people.
Amen, Jamie.
Did your motion for relocation get granted or denied by the court?
It was denied by the court.
So you were not legally permitted to move to Miami?
No.
Although, Jamie, let's just acknowledge that they get away with it probably most of the time until they're caught, right? Like a situation like this where it's obvious.
Did you have an alternative? You mentioned previously that there was a hostile work environment at Florida State University as a result of your husband. Or your ex-husband at this point, was the failure to be able to relocate, did that cause you to remain in that environment?
It did.
For how long?
I don't remember the date that the petition to relocate was denied. If you could show me the binder, I could find the date.
And I'll draw you to pages 262 and 263.
In the binder? Oh. Okay, so the order was on June, no, what's the date is? It was June 20th, 2013. So I was still working at the law school through July 2014, so I stayed for one more year.
Okay, and it was subsequent to his death that you were able to find new employment that was in a less hostile work environment. Is that accurate?
I mean, eventually after his death, I found new employment. It took me a little while.
Okay. How long did you stay in Tallahassee after your husband was killed? Ex-husband, sorry.
Stayed a couple of days. And then after I had asked the police for protection at the funeral or in my home and they refused, I decided to just go for a couple of days and spend a few days away from Tallahassee. And then this case hit CNN and hit the media, and I didn't
I don't
feel
mean to
safe.
interrupt you, but the question was, how long did you stay in Tallahassee after your husband was killed?
I'm sorry, Ms. Kappelman. I stayed for a few days.
Thank you. All right, so how did your mom...
An impressive attempt to try and sprinkle some fairy dust on the unfortunate fact that she left after two days. I thought it was 3 days later. She left immediately after Dan was killed, is the point, and never returned. Never returned to Tallahassee. You would think, wouldn't you, that Wendy, if she is guilty in this, if she is guilty, she has been incredibly careful with her actions and behavior. You would think that she would leave it a bit longer, right? So I guess you could argue in one sense that maybe, you can see this either way, her moving immediately. Would someone worried about them being suspected be so careless? But then again, she'd just gone through like a 7, 8, 9 hour interview, and you can tell from watching that interview that she is being believed, superficially at least, at that point. So perhaps she just felt safe enough and thought she had covered her tracks well enough, right? So it just depends how you look at it. Jamie, I wish Georgia had pressed her on the cops telling her she wasn't unsafe. Yeah. Helen says, I think she thought she'd put in enough groundwork and was safe to leave quickly. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, this whole narrative she gives about feeling unsafe and comes into play in her argument for changing the kids' names as well, which is ludicrous.
Take the news that you were not going to be able to relocate?
She was very upset.
One moment, please.
And apparently never inquired about getting any private security if she felt that unsafe. Let's not forget that point.
All right, I want to talk a little bit about the litigation that continued after your divorce was final. Was there a motion to enforce the marital settlement agreement and hold Dan Markell in contempt of court filed by you?
Yes.
All right. And a few months later, did he respond with a counter motion to enforce the marital settlement agreement's final provisions, alleging some violations that he said you made on the marital settlement agreement?
Yes.
And these filings are pretty venomous.
Hey, Calamity. Yeah, you're right. She has a rather disproportionately long neck. You're correct. I hadn't noticed that at first.
Is that a fair characterization?
I guess she always wanted to be a giraffe, right?
Not on my part.
Well, on both your parts, right?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And he accuses you of various things, lying about your financial affidavit and things like that. Would you agree?
He does make those accusations. They were completely baseless, but yes.
All right. And let's see. Oh, in the pleadings, is the tennis racket mentioned as something to fight over? And I can draw your attention to that page in line if you need it.
I have to play it.
Wendy, have you always wanted to work at a think tank? Is that what you want to do with your life?
No, it definitely isn't.
What have you always wanted to do?
When I was little, I wanted to be a giraffe.
When she was little, she always wanted to be a giraffe.
I imagine it could have been. You can draw my attention if you like, and I can confirm.
Okay, but no reason to argue about the fact that a tennis racket is mentioned specifically in your divorce documents.
I mean, that sounds like some of the nonsense that we argued over, sure.
Okay. And was there a motion? I want to draw your attention specifically to this motion. It's on page 441 of that document in front of you, Exhibit 59. This motion was filed by Dan Markell on March 26th of 2014, so shortly before his death.
I see it.
Okay, what was that motion?
Former husband's counter motion for enforcement of MSA on parenting issues and motion for contempt and sanctions.
And in that motion, did he allege that you were violating the marital settlement agreement in a variety of ways?
Yes, it looks like he did.
Including failing to facilitate communication between he and the boys, failing to keep him informed of where his kids are, failure to communicate about parenting decisions like the kids' schooling, diet, and extracurricular activities, things like that.
Yes, that looks right.
All right. And was he, as part of this motion, seeking to enjoin you from allowing your mother to have time with the children that was unsupervised by another adult?
I am not seeing that right now, but I can continue reading through it.
Okay, take your time.
I am not seeing that now, but I can continue reading through it.
Actually, oh wait, still going.
Is this a question that you need refreshing on? Did your husband make these allegations? You don't have an independent recollection of that?
I don't have an independent recollection.
Okay.
He made a lot of allegations that weren't true, so I need to look through to figure out which ones we're talking about.
Okay.
Okay, I see it.
And obviously, let's just acknowledge that part of her weirdness on the stand, I guess, is the fact that, you know, she is a trained attorney, right? She sees herself on the same level as Georgia. So she's attempting to showcase that.
See what you're referencing.
All right, so in that filing, Dan Markell alleges that your mother is disparaging him to the children, correct?
That is correct.
And he was seeking a court order saying she couldn't have contact with the kids unless there was another adult present, correct?
I see that here. I don't think I took it seriously at the time, so it didn't really lodge in my memory.
Did your mom take it seriously?
No.
Was it ever ruled on?
I don't know. If it were, it should be here, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it here?
No, it's not. It was scheduled to be ruled on in August of 2014, right?
I don't know. I don't know when it was scheduled for. I do know that nobody took it very seriously.
Okay, so your mom wasn't worried about that motion being granted. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about your brother. You can.
Okay, I just need to watch that a little bit again. That's interesting. Yeah, Georgia's making the point that it never got to court because Dan was murdered before it got a chance to, and Wendy, of course, laughs at that, at the fact that that never happened. I guess not at his murder, but at the fact that, you know, it never got to court because it was after the murder, right, guys? Oh, they are.
I don't think I took it seriously at the time, so it didn't really lodge in my memory.
Did your mom take it seriously?
No.
Was it ever ruled on?
I don't know. If it were, it should be here, right?
This is absolute deflection. She is lying right here. Has to give the impression, has to play down the importance of this motion to deny crazy Donna access to the kids. Can you imagine Donna's reaction to this? And Wendy wants to give the impression that it was so irrelevant that she can't even remember if the motion got to court.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it here?
No, it's not. It was scheduled to be ruled on in August of 2014, right?
I don't know. I don't know when it was scheduled for.
Funny, right? Why would you laugh at that? Wow. Dan was killed July the 18th, and it was due to go to court in August. She finds that funny.
Or I do know that nobody took it very seriously.
Okay, so your mom wasn't worried about that motion being granted. Okay.
Well, she was sure worried about something because she got him murdered in the end, so there's that.
Let's talk a little bit about your brother. You can just sort of close that binder and leave it in front of you if that's okay. How old is your
I guess I should say allegedly, right? She's not convicted yet. I think I'll be okay.
Your brother, Charlie Adelson?
He is 45.
Is he your older or younger brother?
I have two older brothers, so he is one of the two older brothers.
Are you closer to one more than the other?
Yes.
Which one are you closer to?
Charlie.
And has that always been the case, or just since this case?
No, it's not since this case. I think when we were kids, I was probably closest to my oldest brother, and then after getting to be an adult myself around my 20s, I was probably closer to my middle brother.
Around the time of 2013 and 2014, were you closer to Charlie at that time?
I would say so.
All right. And are you aware of any connection at any time between your brother Charlie and any gang members?
No.
She does.
Did your brother use drugs?
Yeah, you're right.
He did, yeah.
What type of drugs did he use?
Marijuana.
Okay, what else?
I don't know of anything else.
Okay. And do you know where he got the drugs from that he used?
I don't.
Okay. Was he a recreational marijuana user or was he a drug dealer?
I would say he was a recreational marijuana user.
Okay. Was this something he did every day or just occasionally?
I don't know how often. I don't know if it was every day, but I do know the pain of the last few years has led him to do some self-medicating.
Okay, but I'm really speaking of the time frame. I should have clarified 2013 to 2014.
I don't know if he was using any drugs during that time.
Okay. But you became aware of it subsequent to the incidents that we're here about today?
That's right.
Okay. Were you aware that your brother, I think you testified he sometimes worked at the Adelson Institute. What did you mean by that? Where else does he work?
So he is a periodontist, and he has kind of a traveling practice of sorts. So he would work in various doctor's offices throughout Broward, Dade, and Palm Beach counties. And so sometimes he would work from my dad's practice, but sometimes he would work from different offices. I don't know how often he worked at which one. I just know he worked at various offices.
All right. So I asked you, I'm sorry to change topics on you so much, but previously we were talking about your two brothers. Is your other brother, not Charlie, but your other brother, is he located here in Florida?
He is not.
All right. And back in 2014, was he living in another state?
He lived in Gainesville for a while. I'm trying to remember in 2014 if he was in Gainesville. I don't think so. I think he was in another state.
All right. So been in another state throughout the incidents we're here about today?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. All right. Now back to what we were talking about with your brother Charlie's practice. So he travels around to different dentist offices and performs a specific service, like on a contract basis. All right. And Are you aware that he does that type of work or offers a discount for that type of work if his customers pay in cash?
I'm not aware of that.
Are you aware of your brother carrying large amounts of cash?
He did sometimes carry more cash than I would, but not like big sums of cash, no.
And did you observe the cash that he carried to be stapled together in packs?
No, I never saw staples.
Has your brother ever been married?
No.
How would you describe the kind of lifestyle your brother was enjoying back around the time of these incidents, 2013, 2014?
I think he lived a bachelor lifestyle, very different than mine. Would enjoy nice restaurants, had lots of girlfriends.
Not a lot of responsibilities.
Not a lot of responsibilities.
A lot of girlfriends.
You say not a lot of?
A lot of different girlfriends.
Always a different girl, yeah.
Who is Jerome Obed?
Right,
he
Jeremy.
is
Hey, Mary.
a person who used to live with my brother.
Do you know the time frame that he lived with your brother?
I remember I introduced him to his current wife, and that was maybe 2011. So maybe during the period, I don't know how much, I can tell you he was living with them that year, but I don't know for how long before or how long after they lived together. They were friends though.
Oh, so, okay, so you can't tell us whether he was living with your brother in the 2013, 2014 time frame that we're here about.
I don't remember.
Okay. And is Mr. Obed also a doctor, a dentist?
He is a dermatologist.
So for anyone just arriving, we're watching the 2022 second trial, which was the retrial of Katie McBanowa. And this is obviously Wendy testifying. And I want to contrast this with Jeffrey's testimony afterwards.
Dermatology, thank you. All right, and your brother, we were talking about his lifestyle and the girlfriends. Does he also drive fancy cars?
He does.
Including a Ferrari?
Yes.
All right. And were you aware of one of his girlfriends by the name of Catherine Magbanua?
Yes.
Did you ever have the opportunity to meet that particular girlfriend?
Yes, we met maybe 2 or 3 times.
2 or 3 times? Do you recall what the occasions were?
There was one time we had dinner when I was in town.
Katie's on the left.
Which is what I did every time I'd come to town and have dinner with my brother and a different girl. And then one time I went to the beach for an hour or so, and she and a friend of hers joined us.
Okay. And was there a third time?
I don't actually remember a third time.
All right. So was there anything special about this girlfriend in terms of her relationship with your brother? Did they seem closer or more serious?
Yeah, there was something special about Katie. She didn't mind being a part of a murder. She had that going for her.
Serious.
It didn't seem serious.
Were you off-put by Ms. Magbanua for any reason? Did she seem like different from the ordinary trail of women that kept? But you could be
I hate when I do that. I accidentally went way back at the beginning of the video.
Would enjoy nice restaurants, had lots of girlfriends.
Not a lot of responsibilities.
Not a lot of responsibilities. And that was maybe 2011.
I always find it funny just to illustrate the demise of some of these people in images. So here's Katie back at the time when things were good for Katie. This is round about the time when she was seeing Charlie prior to the murder. She worked in various bars in Miami. She had a previous relationship with the guy on the right here. This is Sigfrido Garcia. From all accounts, he is the guy that actually shot Dan. The guy on the left is Luis Rivera, who drove him up. So Katie and Garcia had a couple of kids together, I believe. So this is her at the time of some of the events here. So you get an idea of the character. And now, 10 years later, Here we are. Oh dear. She apparently not just once, not just twice, but 3 times rejected a plea agreement for a hugely shorter sentence to work with the prosecution. Turned it down each time, and now she is serving life in prison without parole. And just to sprinkle something on top of that, which is rather delightful, she ended up cooperating anyway in the end during the third trial to help convict Charlie. Charlie was making the argument that Katie was a part of the attempt to get money out of Charlie and his family. So Charlie had essentially turned on Katie, so Katie eventually cooperated, but got nothing in return for it. So that's why she's the idiot in this cast of characters. And it's rather delightful. I have zero sympathy for this clown.
So maybe during the period, I don't know how much, I can tell you he was living with them that year, but I don't know for how long before or how long after they lived together. They were friends though.
So Mary is asking, do you think that Wendy is next to be arrested? I would say I'm 60-70% sure that Wendy is going to be arrested, yep. But there is the problem that there does seem to be just less evidence that we're aware of regarding Wendy. There's no doubt, I think, really, it would be astonishing if this happened without Wendy having any knowledge of this, right? But I guess there's a chance of that. But if we're being honest and observing this, we have to say that Wendy is guilty here. And she's been named as an unindicted conspirator, so we have to assume that there's more evidence that has not been put out in public yet. So some people were thinking that perhaps she would be arrested after Donna was arrested at the airport and they could perhaps be convicted together. But it's looking like that may not happen, and it could be a case of going through them one by one, because Harvey is also at great risk of being arrested. So watch this space.
Oh, sorry.
There's also the potential of Charlie turning on Wendy. But you have to assume he's most likely not going to turn on Wendy while Donna is still going through the process. But once Donna is convicted, then I think all bets are off regarding Charlie. There's enough that we've heard already from some of the phone calls between Charlie and Donna in recent weeks, in recent months, that suggest that Charlie is ripe for turning on Wendy.
Okay, so you can't tell us whether he was living with your brother
JD.
in the 2013-2014 timeframe. That
It's good to see you again, JD. Glad you're here. Hope you're well. Colin Howell of Northern Irish descent. I'll look into it for sure.
we're here about.
I don't remember.
Okay. And is Mr. Obed also a doctor or a dentist?
He is a dermatologist.
Dermatology, thank you. All right, and your brother, we were talking about his lifestyle and the girlfriends. Does he also drive fancy cars?
He does.
Including a Ferrari?
Yes.
All right. And were you aware of one of his girlfriends by the name of Catherine Magbanua?
Yes.
Did you ever have the opportunity to meet that particular girlfriend?
Yes, we met.
In terms of her relationship with your brother, did they seem closer or more serious?
It didn't seem serious.
Were you off-put by Ms. Magbanua for any reason? Did she seem like different from the ordinary trail of women that came through his life?
She seemed perfectly nice.
Trail.
Did you bond with her in a
love
special
that.
way? Did you have a different type of relationship with her than you had with any of his other girlfriends?
No, I mean, if anything, I'd say I'd been closer to other girlfriends. I only met her twice.
All right. What about her ex, Sigfredo Garcia, were you aware of him at all before this case?
No.
So you didn't even know she had an ex?
I knew she had an ex because my brother once mentioned that he was dating a girl and she had an ex that seemed a little scary. And I said, maybe you should stay away from that.
Yeah, and so the ex, did you have specific knowledge about why he was a little scary?
No.
And did Catherine Magbanua ever tell you anything that was specifically scary about him?
No.
Were you aware of your brother having any communications with the scary ex-husband?
No, only that my brother seemed a little scared of him, but I don't know that they talked or didn't talk.
So it would be surprising to you to learn that they had a relationship?
Very.
What about your ex-husband, Dan Markell? Did you ever know him to be involved with any type of drug activity or gangsters, anything like that?
No, Danny consulted on criminal law cases, so I do remember there being a case involving Orthodox rabbis that were engaging in some very violent activity, and that had me concerned, but other than that, no.
Okay. Not in his personal life?
No.
Okay. Was your brother Charlie, or is your brother Charlie, protective of you?
He is, yeah.
Did you discuss your marital problems with him back during the time of 2013, 2014?
I did.
Is it fair to say that in the time frame leading up to the murder of your ex-husband that your brother did not like your ex?
I think it's fair to say. I mean, I also think it's fair to say he wasn't particularly concerned with it. He was leading his own life and not really focused on mine.
But your mom was really focused on yours?
My mom was focused on mine.
And your mom was in the ear of your brother quite a bit, same as she was with you, right?
I don't know about how much she was in his ear or not.
Did your brother ever mention hiring a hitman to kill your ex-husband?
He never mentioned hiring a hitman. He told one bad off-color
That's a lie.
joke where he said he had bought me a TV when I got divorced and said it was a present and made a very bad joke and bad taste that it was cheaper than hiring a hitman.
And was that... I'm sorry, I cut you off.
Oh, that's okay.
What else were you going to say?
I think that was it.
All right. Was that a joke that your brother made one time or more than one time?
He has a tendency to repeat himself, so everything he says multiple times.
Do you know how many times he said it?
I have no idea.
Silly Charlie, huh? With these bad taste jokes, just can't stop repeating them. Ha ha ha. Okay. Okay, Wendy.
But definitely twice at least.
And it was your understanding that he had...
You can't take Charlie anywhere, can you? He's such a character. Jamie says, didn't Jeff say Wendy and Katie talked about their exes at dinner? He said Wendy always talked about her ex in social occasions. Yeah, he did. Yeah, she's lying about almost everything here. Either downplaying, minimizing, or deflecting on almost everything in relation to Charlie and her mother. Even having observed Charlie and having observed people relate to what Charlie was like, Charlie could never shut up talking about everything. He just could not avoid saying shit, talking about what he was up to, the drugs he was taking, the dodgy people that he knew. Of course, Wendy knew all about this. She was with Charlie many times. Jeff was down visiting Charlie's place. There was Charlie, Katie McBanowa, Wendy, and Jeff there. And this was the occasion when Charlie in the bathtub was essentially bragging about his criminal connections and what he could do, and speaking in rather threatening terms about Dan. But it's damn interesting seeing someone so blatantly obscure and lie like this.
Not made any actual efforts to hire the hitman?
Yes.
But you did get a TV as a divorce present?
I did get a TV.
Look at her. Wow.
Was there a dinner a time when you went out to dinner with your brother?
Now, she is good. I mean, like I was saying earlier, it's also obvious in retrospect, but just look how coldly and easily she can maintain her composure as she lies. The TV is, without any shadow of a doubt, a code word for the murder of Dan. And just look at how she handles the direct question about the TV and the silence that Georgia leaves after it, and just observe her lion posture.
What else were you going to say?
I think that was it.
All right. Was that a joke that your brother made one time or more than one time?
He has a tendency to repeat himself, so everything he says multiple times.
Do you know how many times he said it?
I have no idea, but definitely twice at least.
And it was your understanding that he had not made any actual efforts to hire the hitman?
Yes.
But you did get a TV as a divorce present?
I did get a TV.
Was there a...
Wow, isn't that interesting, guys? Everything about Wendy is contained within that pause there, I think. You got to give her credit. She has a backbone when it comes to the performance. She can pull it off. Ice cold. Whatever needs to be done, she will do. Her dough look is weird, Black Eagle, and it's very contrived. It's very purposeful.
Dinner, a time when you went out to dinner with your brother after the murder where you vomited at the table? That happened? It's just yes or no?
Well, would you like to know the context? It did happen.
Okay, and who was present at that dinner?
Just my brother and me.
Okay, and that was kind of your first time out after this murder had occurred, right?
After it happened, I couldn't eat for several weeks, and then I was completely terrified to leave my house. So this was the first.
She couldn't eat, folks, after the murder. She was so terrified. And her narrative is why she had to leave immediately for Miami. But she wasn't terrified enough to make inquiries into Dan's insurance policy to see if she could get some cash pretty quickly after the murder. So there's that. She was very quick to make sure that she changed the kids' names for school prior to even changing them officially. She needs a pageant sash that says, most dishonest and manipulative witness in history. Yeah. I'll tell you what, though, Katie McBanowa gives her a run for her money. Hopefully I'll get around to playing that later down the line. That was an extraordinary testimony and cross-examination.
First time I tried to leave the house and eat food, and that is how it ended up. I threw up.
At the dinner table, in a restaurant?
Yes, it was very embarrassing.
How long after the murder was that incident?
Probably about a month or so.
Was the dinner intended to be a celebration of the fact that your husband...
Sarah's asking, how did she change the names that quickly? I was under the impression it was pretty quickly. I don't know how quickly. She definitely changed their names for school, but in terms of when she changed them officially, I'm not 100% sure. I know it's relatively quickly, at least within months.
Husband was murdered?
Absolutely not.
Did your brother refer to it as a celebration?
I highly doubt that.
Could that have been one of his jokes that was in bad taste?
He may have been celebrating the fact that I was willing to leave the house.
So as we know from Jeff's interview and his testimony, Wendy told Jeff that Charlie called it a celebration dinner. So if you want to believe Wendy here, you have to believe Jeff is lying about that, which is pretty hard to believe.
All right. Were you involved in the plot to kill your husband?
Absolutely not.
Did you have knowledge of the plot to kill your husband?
No.
But you
Wait a minute, is Helen still here with the body language observations? Did she just nod her head there? She just nodded her head yes when she was asked that. Did I see that?
Was the dinner intended to be a celebration of the fact that your husband was murdered?
Absolutely not.
Did your brother refer to it as a celebration?
I highly doubt that.
Could that have been one of his jokes that was in bad taste?
He may have been celebrating the fact that I was willing to leave the house.
All right. Were you involved in the plot to kill your husband?
Absolutely not.
Did you have knowledge of the plot to kill your husband?
No.
She did. She nodded her head yes. I'll have to go back again. She's even nodding her head yes on some of the previous questions, right? After she directly, consciously nods her head no, there's a yes nod after each question, but it's even more exaggerated on those two specific questions about her participation in this murder.
Was the dinner intended to be a celebration of the fact that your husband was murdered?
Absolutely not.
Did your brother refer to it as a celebration?
I highly doubt that.
Could that have been one of his jokes that was in bad taste?
He may have been celebrating the fact that I was willing to leave the house.
All right. Were you involved in the plot to kill your husband?
Absolutely not.
Did you have knowledge of the plot to kill your husband?
No. Just asked before, so.
Wow. That was interesting.
Who was present at that dinner? In a restaurant?
Yes, it was very. I thought someone might have done this.
Or interview with law enforcement?
I highly doubt that.
Could that have been?
After it happened, I couldn't eat. So everything he says multiple times.
Do you know how many times he said it?
I have no idea, but definitely twice. How much he was in his ear or not.
I apologize, guys. I've done it again and lost my place in the video. Give me a second. Would I like to date her, Rabid? What do you think?
Did your brother ever mention hiring a hitman to kill your ex? What else were you going to say?
I think that was it.
All right. Was that a joke that your brother made one time or more than one time?
He has a tendency to repeat himself, so everything he says multiple times.
Do you know how many times he said it?
I have no idea.
Divorce present.
I did get a TV. After it happened, I couldn't eat for several weeks, and then I was completely terrified to leave my house. So this was the first time I tried to leave the house and eat food, and that is how it ended up. I threw up.
At the dinner table? In a restaurant?
Yes, it was very embarrassing.
How long after
let's
the
just
murder
watch it again.
was that incident?
Probably about a month or so.
Was the dinner intended to be a celebration of the fact that your husband was murdered?
Absolutely not.
Did your brother refer to it as a celebration?
I highly doubt that.
Could that have been one of his jokes that was in bad taste?
He may have been celebrating the fact that I was willing to leave the house.
All right. Were you involved in the plot to kill your husband?
Absolutely not.
Did you have knowledge of the plot to kill your husband?
No.
But you suspected that your family was involved?
No, I did not suspect that my family was involved.
Did you mention in your interview with law enforcement that you suspected that your family could be behind this?
I think I speculated about lots of things during the 6 hours I spent with law enforcement without an attorney present trying to help them solve this murder. Yes, I said all kinds of things.
All right, and one of the things you said was that your family very much disliked him and that you thought it was possible that someone had done this on your behalf, unbeknownst to you.
I did say I thought someone might have done this on my behalf, yes.
And who?
So yes, Wendy, you did point the finger at your family. Stop lying. You also tried to point the finger at Jeff.
Who did your brother know that had connections?
You want me to play again, Pussycat? Her nodding, you mean? Well, I've played it 3 or 4 times, but for you...
All right. Were you involved in the plot to kill your husband?
Absolutely not.
Did you have knowledge of the plot to kill your husband?
No.
But you suspected that your family
She
was
nods.
involved.
She nods
No, I
yes.
did not suspect that my family was involved.
Did you mention in your interview with law enforcement that you suspected that your
I'm not saying we've solved the case or anything, but it's interesting.
family could be behind this?
I think I speculated about lots of things during the 6 hours I spent with law enforcement without an attorney present trying to help them solve this murder. Yes, I said all kinds of things.
All right, and one of the
Well, it was your choice, dummy. You are an attorney. You could have asked for representation at any point. Hybrid, this is the piece of this case I cannot make sense of. Why did she finger Charlie? I know, I know. The only way it makes rational sense to me is that she perhaps isn't smart enough to conceive the danger of this leading towards her own guilt in the end, but rather she was attempting to make people around her, including the police interviewer, aware of how much a victim she was, that even her brother would make a joke about hiring a hitman for her ex-husband who was harassing her so badly and making her life such hell that she just needed people to be aware of this, her victimness. Muppets is here. Hey, how are you? Yeah, Sarah asked this earlier. Does anyone think that possibly she might have wanted to get caught? Because it is very hard to understand some of Wendy's actions. There's no doubt about it. Unslaveology, hey, how are you? To cover her own ass. My family did it behind her back. Because, see, this is the... If you follow another line, which I think Jamie has followed, right, that perhaps at some point, if we assume that she was aware of this hit, right, which is almost without a doubt the case, that perhaps at some point she played an absolute blinder to leave herself high and dry at the end of all this. Was she clever and conniving enough to do this? Is she cold enough to manipulate the situation enough that her family would fall at the end of this and she would inherit the crumbs of the empire? Which would make her tenfold even more hideous than we already think she is, than I think she is. Right? Yeah. This is possible. Think about it. She had the divorce planned. It's obvious from Tamaro Demko's interview what she relates and her thoughts about the book that Wendy had published in 2011, which was a year, just short of a year before the separation. And remember, when did she begin writing the book? It was published around about September 2011, which is what, 9-10 months before the separation. But it's obvious from what's contained within that book and the fact that in her dedications within the book, she doesn't even mention her husband. She says she lives in Florida with her 2 kids. And what's contained within that book mirrors very closely what ended up happening. So it's very easy to see how much she planned the divorce. She had already taken parenting courses, single parenting courses, prior to the divorce. She was ready to hit Dan with what he termed as a Pearl Harbor divorce, a preemptive attack. While Dan's back was turned when he was up in New York, she was able to clean out the safe, remove a lot of the furniture, family heirlooms, hundreds of thousands of dollars of cash, and take the kids somewhere without Dan having knowledge of where she was with the kids. It all speaks towards her planning and her premeditation. So there's a huge indication there that perhaps even by the time of the interview with Detective Isom, she had all that planned out, right? So yeah, great questions, great points.
Things you said was that your family very much disliked him and that you thought it was possible that someone had done this on your behalf, unbeknownst to you.
I did say I thought someone might have done this on my behalf, yes.
And who did your brother know that had connections that could get something like that done?
I have no idea.
And of course, the point being to gently lead the investigation towards her family. In this hypothetical, that would be the scenario, right? And then things like, why on earth would she say these things about the hitmen, about the jokes? All that makes sense under that scenario. It's hard to believe someone could be that devious and cold even towards their own family. But all the dots kind of line up if that's all true.
Do you know Catherine Magbanua?
I have met Catherine Magbanua twice, as I mentioned.
She was your brother Charlie's girlfriend at the time of this murder, wasn't she?
I believe
Objection,
so.
asked and answered.
There may have been other girlfriends
Overruled.
here at the time.
All right. Wait a second. Okay, now answer the question.
Specifically at the time of the murder, Catherine Magbanua was your brother's girlfriend at that time, correct?
I think so.
Okay. And can you identify her? You mentioned you've been to the beach.
Perhaps a good time just to put up the timeline of the day of Dan's murder, of the events there. This is the closest thing we have to a smoking gun for Wendy.
With her on one occasion and dinner on another occasion. Do you see her in the
ago,
courtroom?
yes. I do.
Could you please point her out and describe what she's wearing?
She is sitting over here. She has on a striped blouse and a blazer.
Let the record reflect the witness has identified the defendant. You mentioned that your brother Charlie had a lot of girlfriends. Did you meet all of his girlfriends?
I highly doubt I met all of them, but I met a lot of them.
All right. And specifically in reference to this defendant, did you talk to her on the phone ever separate from your brother?
I have no memory of ever doing that. I don't think so.
Okay, so it wasn't like you had become girlfriends or had an independent relationship with her. You only saw her secondary to visiting your brother?
Twice.
On 2 occasions. I'll show you State's Exhibit 35.
As it stands right now, Pussycat, she is winning, yeah. If she does not care about her public image, she is winning. It is her family that is in fact the weakest link. But I've got a feeling that it's not going to work out for her in the end. Yeah, right, Black Eagle. Yeah, I don't think they would have taught her during her single parenting courses about annihilation, about the option of actually murdering the kid's parent. Absolutely, Black Eagle. She is ghosting Donna.
35.
said. I wonder if she worried about Jeff coming forward with things regarding Charlie, so she figured she'd beat him to the punch by saying it first. But then, why did she not just hold on to Jeff for longer, though? I guess it was too late because she had set him up as a patsy, right? There was no turning back after that point. Yeah, good point. Preemptive strike again, just like the Pearl Harbor divorce. Preemptive. She's already living in a prison of sorts, alone, paranoid. She's not winning. I hope not, right? And I've said this earlier and last time. As long as she's not the kind of person that just does not give a shit what anyone thinks, you're right, she's not winning. She will forever be tarred with this, forever known by everyone she meets. Anytime her name is ever brought up in any circle in the media, it's under the presumption that she's almost certainly a part of her husband's murder, regardless of whether she is convicted.
You recognize State 35?
Yes, I do.
How do you recognize it?
That was the second time we got together. It looks like the three of us at the beach.
And who's the three of you?
It does, right?
So it's me, Katie, and one of her friends.
Do you remember the friend's name?
I do not.
If I said it, would you be able to say yes or no?
I wouldn't.
Okay. And do you know when the photo was taken?
I don't. My best guess is 2013 or 2014.
Okay. One moment, please, Your Honor.
Okay.
Do you recall going to Miami for Father's Day in June, right before Dan Markel was murdered?
I don't have a strong memory of it, but it sounds like something I might have done to visit my dad.
Okay. Did you previously testify in reference to this same photograph or a similar photograph?
Yes, I have.
Okay. And did you testify at that time?
Objection, Your Honor, and proper impeachment.
Okay.
We're fine with some.
We'll return to it, Judge.
All
Just
right,
give me a
that's
minute.
sustained.
All right. And did you have any contact with this defendant since the murder in any kind of way, any communication?
No.
Did you have any contact with her in any way on the day of the murder?
No.
Hey, Tracy.
Do you remember what girlfriends came after Catherine Magdanois as far as your brother's girlfriends?
In order?
Just do your best.
I do. I mean, I feel nervous about saying their names out loud just to...
Why don't we just use first names then?
Hi, Adam.
I remember Whitney.
Okay.
After Whitney.
Whitney, And was Whitney a serious girlfriend?
I think Whitney was a fairly serious girlfriend.
All right. And what about after her?
I'm blanking after Whitney.
Do you remember June?
Yes, of course. Yes, June was after Whitney.
Okay. And can you give me the basic time frame?
I know I have a habit of pausing too much, and some people don't like that, but I can't help myself. This is a great point, Hybrid. She's lost her whole family, her cheerleaders, her babysitters, her status in South Florida. Her freedom is literally all she has left. But here's the kicker, right? And a lifetime of questions from those boys. That is the kicker. Even if she does not care about her public image, what people think about her, she sure as hell cares what her boys think of her, right? And there is no way, the kids are now teenagers, there is no way that they are going to be shielded from the truth in all this. And that could be her real punishment in the end, right?
for Whitney?
I just really remember how old my boys were, but I don't know how long she was in his life for, so maybe like 2014 to 2015 or 16, and then June after that, and I think on and off for a couple of years. And then he was together with the mother of his son, and that was probably 2017, 2018.
Okay. I'm going to approach, would it refresh your recollection
Yeah, I'm going to
look
check
at some
out
text
that channel
messages
for
to,
sure.
so you could give me exact
Thanks,
dates of when these
Slaveology.
women were in your brother's life? Sure.
Right.
All right, so take your time, just take a look at this first page, and I'm specifically referencing these messages that are in red there.
So help me understand though, this is a message between...
Just take a minute and sort of take your time and look at it.
I'm using this to figure out who he was dating when?
Yes.
Okay.
And you're just going to take a look at it and tell me if it refreshes your recollection. If you can't figure out what it is or if it doesn't refresh, then you let me know.
Okay. Right, so it looks like he was with Whitney in 2014, 2015.
Okay, and
But
the specific date?
I mean, it just means that they're in touch with each other. It doesn't mean that they're dating.
Okay. And when were they in touch with each other?
Okay, let me just play you guys a part of one of the recent conversations between Charlie and Donna in light of what some of you guys are talking about here. Just a very short clip. Bear with.
Exactly what happened.
Clearly, she knew she was going to be indicted, and that is
to murder Markel. Her brother Charlie now serving a life sentence for his role in the conspiracy. We've been combing through the jail calls between Charlie Adelson and his mother Donna that were recorded after the jury found him guilty of his role in the conspiracy to murder Dan Markel. The jury found Charlie Adelson guilty of paying 2 hitmen through his ex-girlfriend to kill Dan Markel. One thing Charlie Adelson and his mother discussed several times on those jail calls was the fact that prosecutor Georgia Kappelman brought up in her closing argument that Wendy Adelson drove by Dan Markel's house.
So these are recent conversations, guys, okay, between Charlie and Donna, in light of the fact that we're discussing the potential of either Donna or Charlie flipping on Wendy. This conversation is interesting, and there's more, but I just want to play this here.
House after he was shot.
It looks crazy.
It looks, the ex-wife was out of her way to drive by the murder scene right after hitmen come and kill her husband, ex-husband. After she talks to her mother or brother.
Yeah.
Like, you just painted the picture of the definition of conspiracy. You hear that, and everyone wants to know, why haven't they been arrested? We painted the picture. The problem is, it's on a false premise. At first, I didn't even think she was there. I thought it was, but she actually was there.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy.
Emails from Donna Adelson to Wendy shown during the trial.
Interesting, huh?
It looks like he's telling me Whitney is trying to get back together with him in
Objection,
May.
Your Honor.
Grandma's in jail because she was a part of hiring the hitman to murder Dan. She's going to be going to trial soon, Pussycat.
At this point, the witness is just testifying off the documents,
All right.
which we've only seen for a few seconds.
I'm going to sustain that, okay? I don't want you reading from the documents. What you need to do is take a look at them. If it refreshes your recollection as to what the information that is being asked, then testify to that. If you're just...
I agree on slaveology. We have to already have assumed that Georgia has more information that we're not aware of yet to name her as an unindicted conspirator. We have the knowledge that they have Donna and Harvey's devices now after they were after Donna was arrested at the airport. So we have that potential. We also have the fact that WhatsApp has been brought up by Georgia, I'm sure, in court. There was a few questions to Wendy in regards to WhatsApp and perhaps Snapchat, I believe. I'm not sure of the details. So there are indications that there's going to be more coming out.
Having to read from that document and you don't recall independently, then your answer is that you don't recall, okay?
Okay, thank you. Yes, my answer is the same as it was. I said 2014, 2015, and it looks like there's conversation around that time. So, okay, it doesn't independently refresh.
Okay, let's take a look at a couple more and see if they're more helpful.
Yep, it's the same. The same. 2014.
Look at her stare. She does not like Georgia.
All right, so 2014, 2015 for both of those women.
Wait, both of those, it's the same woman, it's Whitney.
Oh, I was also asking about June.
Oh, I didn't see June in those text messages.
Okay, when was he dating June?
It's a guess, but I think it's around the same time, maybe 2015, 20.
Yeah, most definitely they bought new devices after the arrests and after each trial. They are not dumb enough to change everything out. Well, they were certainly dumb enough to say what they did in those phone conversations that they must have suspected were being wiretapped. They even said as much. Let's not talk here. You know, they gave a lot of insinuations during the conversations that they shouldn't talk on the phone, really, but they couldn't help themselves. They couldn't stop themselves. And you know the way somehow, sometimes when you get a new phone, a new device, sometimes things can be linked up and backed up between the phones, right? So there's all sorts of potential there for information to be sourced. And people are not always aware of what their phone, like what a new phone will back up from the previous phone. You know, the way you have the same Google account and things. So there's all sorts of potential there that there could be information that they themselves just won't be aware is on their phone.
16.
Okay, so is it your recollection that it went Magbanua, then Whitney, then June?
As far as people that I met.
Okay. I'm going to show you what I've marked as states 36.
You're catching my interest, slaveology. I hadn't heard of any connections between Wendy and Sigfrido, so I'm definitely going to be checking out that channel.
Do you recognize state 36?
I think I've seen this picture before.
Okay. And do you recognize the people in the picture?
I do.
Is it a fair and accurate photo of the folks in the picture?
It looks like them back in the day, yeah.
Okay, and do you know when the photo was taken?
I don't.
All right, who is in the photo?
It's my brother and Katie.
Your brother Charlie?
My brother Charlie.
Okay. And Katie, the defendant in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and is it fair to say this photo was taken during the time that they were dating?
It definitely looks like it.
And what was that time frame?
I don't know the time frame of when they were dating.
Okay, were they dating at the time of this murder? We've already
I believe so.
that, okay. And is this how they appeared around that time? Is it accurate in their appearance?
It seems so. Nobody has any, like, you know, weird facial hair or doctor. I don't know. It looks like I imagine they looked at that time.
Okay, and you saw them at that time, around that time?
Yes, indeed, Jimmy.
I did. Yeah, I mean, it's been 8 years, so they look different.
They look different now?
Yeah.
Okay, but that's how they looked back then?
Probably, yes.
All right, Judge, at this time, I'd ask to move into evidence states 36.
Any objection?
One brief moment, Your Honor. To be a stickler, Judge, but improper authentication.
Overruled. It'll be admitted as states 36.
What's wrong with you?
Permission to publish?
You may.
I disagree with that.
The act on impulse. Yeah. Right? His skills after the bump did not
Do you know of any
match,
specific gifts that your brother
did not match the ego as far as Charlie the Maestro is concerned. He sunk the entire ship.
gave this defendant during their relationship?
I don't.
What about after their relationship? Are you aware of any gifts that they were after the conclusion of their relationship?
I am not aware of any gifts between them.
Were you aware that she was on the payroll at the Adelson Institute?
I know that she worked at my dad's office for a while, so it would make sense that she was on the payroll.
And what duties did she perform there?
I have no idea.
Okay, and when you say she worked there,
None. None is the answer. Katie provided no duties. She was being paid for obvious reasons. She was never in any office. She never did any work for Charlie.
did she physically went there?
I really don't know.
And did you ever work at the Adelson Institute?
I did, in
Okay.
between my master's and my law degree.
All
I did
right. And
filing.
did you see Catherine Magbanua there when you were working there?
No, that was 2003.
How do you know that Ms. Magbanua worked at the Adelson Institute?
How do I know? I'm trying to remember if I knew at the time or I found out later. Probably my brother would have told me that Katie was working, and that's how I would have known.
All right. And was that before this murder or since the murder?
I have no idea.
You don't know the time frame she worked there?
I don't know the time frame she worked there, and I don't know why he would have told me. I wasn't very involved with the day-to-day operations of the office or what they did.
Do you know if your brother had any other ex-girlfriends on the payroll at the Adelson Institute?
I don't know.
All right, let's go to the day of Dan Markel's murder. What were you doing that day?
I was at home that morning. I was working on a couple of pieces of writing. I was
Well, I think it's time for my timeline, guys, right? Let's get that up there.
waiting. I remember the Geek Squad was coming to fix my television. And I think
Was
they
that
said
the same television that your brother had purchased for you as a divorce gift because it was cheaper than hiring a hitman?
Actually, I think it'd be better to watch her relate to this, so I'll take this down in a sec. We all know the timeline, right? But it's always good to have a reminder. That's the most important events that day. But we want to see her face.
It was the television that my brother had bought for me.
All right, and did your mother, Donna Adelson, arrange from Miami for the Geek Squad to come to your home that morning to fix the TV?
Did.
Would it refresh your recollection to review some text messages regarding that issue?
Hold on a second.
Objection, Your Honor. Improper impeachment. The witness gave an answer.
Overruled.
Approach.
Counsel, can I take a look at Thanks.
Maybe it's better to pause, and I'll just go through the timeline quickly, guys. So at 8:11, Donna texts Wendy saying, Best Buy just called me, but I told them to confirm with you. They are on their way over now to help you with the TV sets in your living room. At 8:20, Wendy texts Charlie to say this is so sweet. 10 minutes later, at 8:30, the Best Buy agent visits Wendy. That's who she refers to as the Geek Squad. They're there until 9:15. So before they leave, at 8:50, Dan has the kids this day and drops them off at the Creative Preschool. He then drives up to the Premier Fitness Club, and before he goes in, he calls Wendy at 9:02. The two hitmen are already following Dan at this point. They're caught in the car park on the camera. Dan calls Wendy at this point, and Wendy does not answer, but she does listen to the voicemail almost immediately afterwards without returning the call. Dan is in the fitness club working out from 9:10 till 10:40. He leaves at 10:40 to drive down to Trescott. Again, the hitmen are caught following him. At 9:19, okay, so going back to 17 minutes after Dan calls Wendy, Wendy calls Charlie and they have a 20-minute call. Dan is murdered between 10:51 and 10:54. Then just less than an hour later, 3 hours after the original call from Dan, Wendy calls Dan back, and of course there's no answer. At 11:27, Wendy leaves Aqua Ridge, her home, drives up Trescott Drive to the crime scene roadblock, and doubles back. She is seen by one of the law enforcement officers, and he specifies as well that because he knew Wendy and knew the car she drove, and he specified the way that she quickly doubled back, almost in. It was obvious in comparison to how other vehicles would drive up and then slowly turn and move back. She got out of Dodge immediately. She goes back down onto the main road of Centerville and goes round the corner from Dan's to buy her Bullet bourbon at ABC Liquor, and then drives up to meet her friends, and she gets there just after 1 o'clock at Mosaic Restaurant, and then she's picked up from there by Detective Isom.
Alright, and I'm looking at the items in yellow, but feel free to review the whole document.
It was indeed, yeah. And let's just go back to this. I think it was Suzanne pointed this out yesterday. Why does Donna have to say that they're gonna be there to help you with the TV sets in your living room? Why else would the Geek Squad be coming? Wendy just said on the stand that it wasn't Donna that organised this, right? And we know from Jeffrey that Wendy made damn sure that Jeff was aware of how broken this TV was and how unwatchable it was. Why did Donna Not just say Best Buy on their way, right? Why did you have to say they're there to help you with the TV sets in your living room? What is it what is this a code for, right? Helping Wendy with her problem with Dan.
Yeah, I don't really understand. It's my best recollection that I set up the appointment for
Tracy, she's not been charged yet, no, but she's been named as a unindicted conspirator. There is a lot of evidence, but there's no smoking gun that we as the public are aware of. But we have to assume that they have more information to name her as such. So watch this space. I think she is going to get arrested this year.
them to come.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes this happens now where there's a different number on the account, so they call the wrong account. So they could have called my mom and she would have said, no, call my daughter. They need to confirm with you.
Okay, but your mom does indicate that she is sending the guy to your
No,
house.
she indicates that she was called by Best Buy.
Mm-hmm.
So that means she was called by accident since they were coming to my house.
Okay. And did you have an appointment scheduled in your calendar, Fixed TV?
I did. I thought they were supposed to come sometime between 8 and noon. And then they came pretty early, I think, 9 or something like that.
All right. And did you delete, shown on the far right column there if you need to refresh your recollection, but did you delete that appointment to have the TV fixed?
I'm usually kind of OCD about this, so after I have a meeting, I'll delete it if it's done. I use my calendar kind of like a to-do list, so I'll have the meeting and then I'll delete it.
Okay.
So I must have deleted it once they arrived, or...
She's OCD about all these things, but she can't remember half the details with all the legal motions that we're going through. She can't remember much about all that stuff, right? But she can remember why she deleted the TV reminder very well.
Sometime later.
Okay. And right before the message that indicates, that's from your mother that we just talked about, Best Buy called.
Okay.
Yeah, Sarah, apparently when the Geek Squad came out, they said there's no point in fixing this. It's damaged beyond what it's worth, right? To fix this would cost more than buying a new TV. And as Jeff said, there was no way that the TV was broken by the kids. It looked like someone just punched, like an adult punched the video or hit it with a really hard object.
There's a message that says, "This is so sweet." Who is that
Objection, Your Honor.
message to?
Objection.
Hold on, what's the objection?
Hearsay, Your Honor. Item is in evidence.
That's sustained.
All right. Can you say who the message before the Best Buy message? Who did you send that message to?
It looks like I sent that message to my brother.
Your brother Charlie?
Yes.
All right. And that message was deleted as well?
I always delete my messages. But yes, it looks like I deleted it at some point.
All right. And that message, what were you referring to in that message, if you know?
I have no idea.
All right. But it was sweet, whatever it was.
I mean, 8 years ago, I have no idea what was sweet.
It may well be 8 years ago, but it was the day that your ex-husband was murdered, Wendy. You think you might remember what was so sweet in that message? I mean, you remember the guy in ABC said your eyes were so blue.
So did Best Buy show up and repair the TV that morning?
They showed up and they tried to repair the TV. But I needed to make a call of what.
And as most of us know, and it's almost so bonkers, this fact, but not only did she tell Jeffrey and the interviewer, the detective, about the hitman joke, she told the Geek Squad guy on the very morning about the hitman joke. What, 2 hours before Dan was literally killed by a hitman? It's so unbelievable to digest that fact. But she did.
whether it was worth repairing or whether I should just get a new one, because the repair costs I remember being expensive.
And this was, how old was the TV at this point?
I don't know. I don't think it was very old, just a couple of years.
Well, it was given to you as a divorce present at the time of your divorce, right, in 12?
Right, so it wasn't that the TV was old. I think one of the kids had thrown something at the screen, so it cracked it.
Okay, but the fix was done in 14, or the attempted fix?
The attempted fix was in 14.
All right, so the repairman did show up that morning, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you said you did not recall your mom making that appointment, but was it usual or typical for your mom to get involved in that type of minutia of your daily life?
No.
It would be unusual if she did that.
I mean, it would not be unusual for her to try to help me with various things, so it doesn't sound out of the realm of possibility, but I remember distinctly setting it up for that morning of sometime, you know, like when you wait for a repairman to come, they come in a window, they say between 9 and 1. I remember there being a window they had told me.
And do you remember the specific window in this case?
I keep thinking it was 8 to 12, but I don't know.
Isn't it so funny and obvious how she tries to make such suspicious things sound so everyday and unimportant? Like, you know, nothing to see here, guys. Just another day, you know, this happened. Don't look too closely, guys.
I don't know if that's correct.
Okay, and we're talking about 8 a.m., between 8 a.m. and noon. And you agree that your husband, ex-husband, sorry, I keep doing that, was murdered between 8 a.m. and noon.
I don't know the exact time of when it happened.
Really?
Wow. 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 Unbelievable. She is something else.
Man to come, they come in a window, they say between 9 and 1. I remember there being a window they had told me.
And do you remember the specific window in this case?
I keep thinking it was 8 to 12, but I don't know if that's correct.
Okay, and we're talking about 8 a.m., between 8 a.m. and noon. And you agree that your husband, ex-husband, sorry, I keep doing that, was murdered between 8 a.m. and noon.
I don't know the exact time of when it happened.
Really?
Isn't that crazy, guys? Wow. Oh, Tracy, yeah, this is all contrived. With it. There's no doubt about that. Wow.
Between 8 a.m. and noon?
Yes.
I mean, yes, but I thought it was closer to 10 or 11.
Okay. But the question was it between 8 a.m. and noon?
Yes, it was between 8 a.m. and noon.
All right. And did you leave your residence at all that day after you got the TV, or the TV man came?
After the TV repairman came, I did a little bit more work from home. I talked to a couple of friends, and then I made plans to have lunch with 2 friends that I frequently saw on Fridays. And we made kind of a last-minute plan to have lunch. And then I had a few errands to run before I met them. So I did that. I picked up gas. I picked up something I needed for a party.
This is the over-explaining part that's a real indication of her knowledge of messing up by going to the crime scene here. She will go into great detail about everything surrounding the red flag itself. It's such an indicator. And what is also an indicator is the fact that Dan tried to call her, that she listened to the voicemail, and that she tried to call Dan back at 11:42. She was being interviewed by Detective Isom at 2:45. She mentions everything that happened that morning other than Dan calling her and her trying to call Dan back and her listening to the voicemail. That is such a big indicator to me. She even mentions sending an email to the goddamn school library about some paper she was writing where she needed citations. At the beginning of the interview, She listens to a voicemail that she's just got from another friend who had heard about the shooting on Trescott and was worried, so sent Wendy a voicemail expressing this. And even after listening to the voice note, she doesn't show any specific concern about the kids. She doesn't tell the detective that she listened to a voicemail from Dan, his own voice, hours earlier. It is so obvious.
That night, and then I went to meet my friends for lunch.
All right. And do you know what time you left the residence that day?
I don't. My guess is somewhere around noon.
I guess.
And then went and ran your errands? On the way to run your errands, did you go by the crime scene?
No.
On the way to run your errands, did you encounter a roadblock on Trescott?
I did.
All right, so you did turn off of Centerville onto Trescott.
I did.
All right, and when you encountered a roadblock, what did you assume the problem was there?
I figured it was just an electrical storm or something. There was some tape, and it looked like the road was blocked off, and so I just turned around and went back and went up Benton.
And had there been an electrical storm that morning?
I didn't remember an electrical storm, but in the summertime there's always trees falling and rainstorms, so pretty normal.
No one believes you,
and
Wendy.
you weren't concerned based on that experience that there could be something going on at previously your marital home?
Absolutely not.
And your ex-husband, Dan Markell, had your children at that time, right?
No, he did not.
Okay, so you...
Wow. She quibbles over the fact that the kids would have been in preschool at the time, on the day that Dan had the kids. She gives herself away so often here, it's incredible.
Summertime there's always trees falling and rainstorms, so pretty normal.
Right, and you weren't concerned based on that experience that there could be something going on at previously your marital home?
Absolutely not.
And your ex-husband, Dan Markell, had your children at that time, right?
No, he did not.
Okay, so you had your children at that time?
No, my children were at preschool at that time.
Right, but who took them to preschool that day?
Danny would have taken them to preschool.
Okay. So it was his day. He was killed on his parenting day.
It was the day he would have brought them to preschool, and I would have picked them up.
All right. Did they spend the night with him the night before?
They did.
Okay. And you hadn't seen your children yet that day when you encountered the roadblock?
On Friday, no.
Okay.
God, the more you watch of Wendy, she needs to get arrested. She cannot get away with this.
And were you on the phone when you encountered the roadblock? If you
I
remember?
was.
Do you remember who you were speaking to?
I do.
Who was that? You don't have to say the name, but just what type of person was that?
He was a friend. I hadn't caught up with him a long time. He had moved to England, so I was probably a little distracted.
Why are you laughing and joking right now, Wendy? In and around the questions regarding the murder.
Talking and catching up with an old friend.
Okay.
Trying too hard, I think, is the answer.
And when you encountered, at the time that you encountered the roadblock or shortly thereafter, did you call the daycare?
No.
Did you call Dan Markell?
No.
Jamie, that should be in neon, huge letters, blinking letters in regards to this case, because everything surrounding Wendy is encapsulated by that sentence. No parent assumes her kids are fine when cops are at their home. There was crime scene tape. The cops were blocking the road. There was more than one car, police car there. It was obvious. It was 3 doors up from her home, her marital home. And she's expecting people to believe that she just assumed a tree had fallen and this was no big deal. She didn't think anything of it. Why would she be worried about her kids? She doesn't know for certain that the kids are even at preschool. I take that back. She may well have known because Dan phoned her after he dropped them off, right? So maybe she did know. But you would not take a chance, would you? Okay, I'm going to try and stop pausing it.
Did you do anything to reach out to any of the players that we've talked about in this case?
No.
Did you communicate to anyone that there was a roadblock?
I didn't. I would have had no reason to do that.
Was Dan Markell scheduled to leave town the day after he was killed?
I believe so.
Where was he going?
He was going to New York.
And that's where he had a girlfriend?
That's where his girlfriend lived.
Do you know how the killers knew that Dan Markell was planning to leave town the next day?
I have no idea.
You didn't relay that information to anyone?
Absolutely not.
Did you have WhatsApp on your phone at the time?
I really don't know. I have it now. I don't know if I had it 8 years ago.
Did you communicate with anyone on WhatsApp or similar technology to relay any information about the murder of your husband?
Absolutely not.
Do you know if your brother Charlie had WhatsApp at the time?
I have no idea.
Did you communicate with him through WhatsApp?
If I had...
Whenever Wendy says, I have no idea, you can just replace that with yes.
WhatsApp on my phone, then maybe I did. I know I had friends who lived around the world. At that time, WhatsApp was more of a technology used to talk to people internationally. So I know the friend I was talking to was in England. If I had WhatsApp, I would have used it to call him.
Did you know that WhatsApp, the communications are encrypted, they cannot be retrieved by law enforcement? Were you aware of that?
I think they can be retrieved by law enforcement, but it's one of the end-to-end encryption services.
All right, and so you can't tell the jury whether you communicated through WhatsApp at all on the day of the murder?
I don't remember if I had it 8 years ago. I have it now, so we could look and figure out if I had it then, but I don't know.
All right, did you ever communicate with Catherine Magbanua at any time through WhatsApp?
I never communicated with her at all.
When you left the residence and encountered the roadblock, where were you headed?
When I left my residence?
Mm-hmm.
I was headed to ABC Liquors to get an item that was requested for a Stock the Bar party I was supposed to go to that Friday night.
And what was that item?
I'm sorry?
What was the item?
It was bourbon.
What type of bourbon?
Bullet bourbon. The invitation had asked specifically to bring a bottle of Bullet bourbon, so I went to the store and asked them where I could find that.
And the bottle of Bullet bourbon was in your vehicle when law enforcement came to interview you about this case?
Right. When I told law enforcement they could search my vehicle and signed away all my rights, yeah.
Well, you are an attorney, Wendy. You should know what one does in such a situation. What are you talking about? Ironic is one way to say it, Tracy. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Jamie, I really think Georgia has something from WhatsApp. I really do.
After the murder of Dan Markell, was it your practice to tell people, just acquaintances and peripheral people in your life, that he had been involved in an accident?
I don't believe so.
Do you know whether that was something that your brother told people?
I have no idea what my brother told people.
Did you ever hear your brother Charlie Adelson tell someone Dan Markell was involved in an accident?
No, I've never heard that. I was just thinking, law enforcement told me when they were interviewing me that I wasn't supposed to tell anyone what happened until it was released, but...
And that was...
Yeah, it's hard not to, Tracy, when you have just zero doubt about her involvement in this.
It was just the day of.
She's a hideous.
That was the day of.
Okay. Did you or your children benefit financially from your husband's death?
Absolutely not.
Did your husband have a life insurance policy?
He did have a life insurance policy.
And what was the value of that policy?
I don't know what the value of it was at the time. I do know that his sister's the custodian of that life insurance policy, and I pay taxes on that money every year, but we don't receive any of it.
What was the value of it at the time of your husband's death?
It was $1 million.
Not $2 million?
$1 million for each child.
$2 million. All right. And did you believe prior to your husband's murder that you were the custodian of that money for the benefit of the boys?
No, we were divorced. So I was the custodian while we were married. But once we were divorced, I was no longer the custodian.
So you
were divorced, but it didn't stop you trying to get the GoFundMe donations under the claim of being his widow.
Were aware that he had designated someone else to do that job.
Well done, Dan.
You didn't inquire through your attorney about challenging the designation of the sister as the custodian of that money?
I wasn't trying to challenge the designation, no.
Do you have access personally to that money?
No.
All right. What about a 401k? Did your ex-husband have a 401k when he died?
I believe he did.
All right. And are you the custodian of that money for the benefit of the boys?
I am. That's how I pay the taxes.
All right. Did he have a pension?
I don't know.
Social Security benefits?
I don't know if he had Social Security benefits. As survivors, my children receive Social Security benefits.
$4,800 a month, right?
That's right.
$4,800 a month, guys. Add that up over a year and times that by 10.
Deferred compensation fund?
I don't remember.
$217,000. Does that sound familiar?
I don't remember.
What about the IRA? Did he have an IRA?
I really don't know.
$100,000?
It's very possible.
What about a checking account?
I don't know if I assume he had a checking account.
$15,000 in there, right?
Wouldn't go to us, but sure, I imagine he had a checking account.
It wouldn't go to you and the boys? Where did it go?
Funeral expenses?
Okay.
Wow.
All right, and
wow.
Obviously you did not have to maintain your divorce lawyer for any purpose after the murder of Dan Markell.
I think at that point he was trying to provide counsel for something else, but no, I didn't. I had to maintain him for a little bit just to close out the case. He had some work to do to finalize things.
All right. And was your mom able to go back to work full-time once you moved to South Florida, or did she remain in this status of sort of?
Was Wendy the beneficiary of any of these accounts? She tried to, she checked on the insurance, hoping that she was a beneficiary. Dan had been smart and had made arrangements to avoid that, but Wendy tried to get the GoFundMe donations. She obviously became a beneficiary of the Social Security payments, which were about $5,000 a month. She claimed FSU death benefits. She didn't have the same legal costs. That was no longer needed.
Helping with the kids a lot and working part-time.
She helped with the kids a lot, especially while I tried to get back on my feet and find work.
All right. Have you ever returned to Tallahassee to live after you said you left?
Oh yeah, Wendy, I'm sure it was quite legal, the Social Security, for sure. Not much anyone could do about it, right?
About 2 days after the death.
I've never come back to live. I came back to give a talk, I think twice. And then I came back for a friend's wedding. I came back for a friend's bar mitzvah. So probably came back 4 or 5 times since.
Right, but the question
not
is to reside.
I'm sorry, Ms. Kappelman. I haven't lived here.
Okay.
Since I left.
You've lived steady in South Florida since that date.
I have lived in South Florida.
Okay. And who has full custody of your 2 boys?
Me.
And does your mom have any issues with having access to your boys, or does she have full access to your kids?
I mean, there's no issues with access, no.
How often would you say your mom sees the kids?
I think it depends on the week, but probably at least once or twice a week.
How old are your boys now?
They're 11 and 12.
How old were they when their dad was killed?
It was 10 days before my older son's birthday, so he was almost 5. And my younger son was 3.5.
Did you change their legal names about a month or so after the murder?
No, not a month or so after the murder, no.
Okay. When was it done? Even sooner than that?
No, absolutely not. When I tried to put my children in school and their faces had been unblurred on CNN and all across social media.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but if you'll answer my question is, when were the boys' names changed?
The boys' names were changed after I wrote a letter to Danny's family explaining why I was changing their names.
When were their names
About
changed?
a year after.
Okay, and that was when they were legally changed, July 6, 2015?
I don't remember the date, but if you have it, that sounds correct.
Okay, so they were legally changed on that date, but just a month or so after the murder, when you were enrolling them in school, is when they effectively had their names changed.
That is not true.
Okay. And what did you change their names from and to?
I changed their last name from their father's last name to mine.
From Markel to Adelsons?
That is correct.
And did you also drop the middle name of one of your boys that was a tribute to his paternal side?
It was a tribute to both families.
Did you drop it?
I did. I lost an honor to both families that day, yes.
Lost an honor to both boys that day. Yeah, she changed their names within the month at school, and then legally a year after. Yeah.
Do you want the culpable parties in this murder held accountable?
Absolutely.
And even if it involves your own family?
Absolutely.
Do you recall giving an interview with law enforcement on the day that your ex-husband was murdered?
I recall sitting with law enforcement for 6 hours, yes, I recall.
And did you tell law enforcement something different in that interview about the culpability of your family?
I'm sure while I sat for 6 hours completely traumatized that I said all kinds of things.
All right, and was one of the things you said while you sat for 6 hours completely traumatized that you wanted the culpable parties held accountable unless it was your family?
I don't believe I phrased it like that, and I think you're taking my words out of context, but sure.
But sure?
But sure what?
No further questions.
All right, we're going to take our break now.
Wow. Wow, there is more to this here. There's you have to remember there's 3 attorneys here. Sorry, 2. Two prosecutors, and there's also obviously the representation of Katie. So there's more examination here, and I think Georgia comes back for some cross at the end.
And so it'll be about a 10-15 minute break, allow you to stretch your legs, use the facilities, and so the deputy will take you back. Remember, no discussion about the case or any testimony that you've heard. You can leave your pads on your chairs, and we'll be back to continue the testimony in about 15 minutes, okay? Just wait one moment. Okay?
Oh dear. Okay. I don't believe I have the rest of that. Give me a second, guys. Okay, I'll need to play this directly from YouTube. I seem to have lost the remainder of the testimony. Give me a sec. Sorry, guys. Having to improvise here. Bear with. Because we need to see the end of this here.
Please be seated.
You can let me know, guys, if you
Ready to continue with the testimony. Ms. Kappelman, you may continue with your direct if necessary.
Thank you, Your Honor. So, sir, I'm going to approach you with what I've marked as State's Exhibit 64. Ms. Adelson, did you have an opportunity to review State's 99 of discs containing wiretap calls relating to this case?
I did.
And as part of our pretrial preparations, were you asked to listen to those calls and verify whether or not you could authenticate some of the voices on those calls?
So I was asked not to listen to the whole call, but just to listen to a few seconds, enough to be able to identify the people speaking on the calls.
And is that what you did?
That is what I did.
All right. And is State's Exhibit 64 a fair and accurate recording of where your initials appear, that representing that you could authenticate the voices on that particular call?
That is correct.
Okay, so for example, the list includes call A on State's Exhibit 99, and you've initialed here indicating that the call is from Donna Adelson to Charlie Adelson.
That is correct.
Thank you, Judge. At this time, I'd ask to move into evidence State 64.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Be admitted as State's Exhibit 64.
No other questions. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. Ms. Adelson, this is all about you, isn't it?
Excuse me?
This is all about you, right?
I was called to be a witness.
Yeah, this is one of these unique circumstances in this trial where both sides, the prosecution and the defense of Katie McBanowa, have reasons to paint Wendy in a certain way, right? To bring out some evidence regarding her potential knowledge in this. So it's quite interesting because we're now getting the defense attorney here cross-examining her on Katie's behalf. Need more volume. Okay, I shall try.
And I'm testifying. So
If you let me know if this is, if you can hear this, guys.
I don't understand the question. Is it a question?
There's about 100 people in this courtroom, right?
There are people in the courtroom.
Possibly thousands watching, right?
I have no idea who's watching.
And it's all because of your failed marriage, right?
I disagree with that.
You disagree that your ex-husband is dead because of your family.
Yes, I disagree.
These jurors are here for weeks doing their civic duty because of your marriage, right?
No.
Katie's going through this ordeal because of that marriage, right?
No.
Dan Markel's parents are going through absolute misery because of your failed marriage. Isn't that right?
No, that's incorrect.
Well, let's talk about the marriage. You and Professor Markel, you met when you were in law school. You told that to Miss Kaplan. And it was a whirlwind romance, right? Right?
It was not a whirlwind romance, no.
It led to a wedding, February 26th of 2006. You had a big wedding in Boca Raton, right?
Did we get married on February 26, 2006? Is that the question? Yes,
In Boca Raton.
in Boca Raton, Florida.
And it wasn't a small wedding, it was a big wedding.
There were many people in.
Yeah. Okay, guys, in light of the issues here with the volume on this, I think I'm going to wrap it up there. I think it'd be a better idea to do another live where we play the end of Wendy's testimony during this trial, and then move on to Jeffrey's and contrast them that way. I think that's a better way to do it. We've gone over 3 hours now. Unless anyone has any questions in chat, I think this may be a good time to wrap this up, guys. And then I'll sort out the video for the next time. I obviously screwed up the video that I put together there, and there's a whole part missing from the end of my video. What will it take to charge Wendy? Well, as it stands at the moment, there is a hell of a lot of evidence, but it's circumstantial evidence, right? But you can convict on circumstantial alone, as we all know. But based on what's out there, the information we have, you can see that it could be difficult, right? So we have to go under the assumption that there's more evidence that we're not aware of, and that will come out in due course. Yeah, the prosecutor that you were listening to there is Georgia Kappelman, and her co-prosecuting attorney is Sarah Duggan. Sarah Duggan cross-examined Katie McBanawa, and it's dynamite to watch. That's an extraordinary cross-examination. We'll get to that eventually. You're welcome, Sarah. Yeah, this case just draws you in. It's just unbelievable. The cast of characters here just blows your mind. Alright guys, so I'll wrap it up there. Next time we'll finish off Wendy's testimony of the second trial, and we will go through Jeffrey's testimony of that same trial. And then we'll get to the final trial, or the most recent trial of Charlie Adelson last year. And then we shall swing back in time to show Katie's I have to show Katie's testimony and her cross-examination. Alright guys, well thanks as always for being here, and I really appreciate your participation. It's what makes it what it is. So until next time guys, good night, and I shall see you around the tubes.